Chapter 1475. Qian Qian, the latest chapter of God King Wu Ji. Qing Chuyuan. The snow that hadn't completely melted was still emitting a slight chill. Under the warm sunlight, crystal dew hung on the leaves of the plants in the crevice of the mountain stream. Just like before, Chu Hen lay motionless on the ground for a few days. His clothes were dirty and messy, and his face was covered with dust and some dispirited stubble. "We can't go on like this." Qiao Shaowan sighed and complained helplessly. Yi Yao could only shake her head, and then gently rubbed the head of Yin Yang Beast Noni. At the same time, Mu Feng, Long Xuanchuang, Haozi, and Hani Chuan also walked over from the foot of the mountain. Everyone looked at each other, but when they saw the same scene, they couldn't help but feel disappointed. Is he going to be petrified? Mu Feng was angry and amused at the same time. "Sister Xuanchuang, why don't you go and persuade him? Brother Chu Hen should listen to you," Yi Yao said timidly. They looked at Long Xuanchuang, and the latter hesitated for a moment before nodding. Then Long Xuanchuang walked forward. However, after a few steps, Long Xuanchuang suddenly stopped, and her face showed some surprise. "What's wrong?" Mu Feng asked. Long Xuanchuang looked sideways, and then she raised her hand again, as if she was touching the air in front of her. Then she turned around and looked at the crowd with a puzzled expression. "We can't go through." "What do you mean we can't go through?" They didn't understand. After saying that, Mu Feng also stepped forward. But when he walked to the position next to Long Xuanchuang, something strange happened. He couldn't take another step forward. The space in front of them seemed to be sealed by an invisible force. There seemed to be a transparent wall in front of them, blocking them from entering. This is... Mu Feng's brows were filled with surprise. Following that, the others also came over. However, when they saw the invisible barrier in front of them, they were extremely puzzled. "Restriction?" Han Yichuan asked in a deep voice. "We'll know once we try." Mu Feng's eyes turned cold, and a powerful demonic force overflowed from his body. A vigorous golden halo immediately enveloped his body. Then Mu Feng took 2 steps forward. In the next moment, Mu Feng's body faintly trembled. The powerful demonic power that he emitted seemed to be weakened, and the golden light that lingered around him quietly became dim. He felt as if his legs had sunk into a quagmire, and an invisible pressure invaded every inch of his body from all directions. "How are you?" Yi Yao asked. Mu Feng hurriedly raised his hand to stop the others from following. "Don't come over." Everyone was stunned. "Isn't it a restriction?" Haozi wondered. If it's a restriction, if Mu Feng forcibly breaks in, it should cause 2 forces to tear and collide. Han Yichuan frowned. Immediately, they saw that Mu Feng had actually retracted the demonic power that he released. Then he stood motionless in the same place, looking extremely cautious. Just when everyone was puzzled, an invisible rhythm of space rushed over here, together with a slightly stirred airflow. The few people standing behind also changed their expressions. "This is..." Everyone looked at each other in astonishment. The invisible pressure of space shrouded them. They were surprised to find that the surrounding space was filled with Chu Hen's aura. This aura seemed to exist in every corner, endless, and as vast as the sea. Crack! Suddenly, a slight sound spread from the ground. They looked down subconsciously and saw that an emerald green sprout had drilled out of a crack in the stone. This green sprout grew extremely fast, like an extended tree vine, and in an instant it grew to more than 1/2 meter high. Sizzle! Immediately afterward, a beam of purple lightning shot out of the ground and quickly spread all over the green vine. Under the increasingly stunned gazes of the few people, the tree vine, flashing with purple lightning bolts, propped up the ground and turned into a towering tree tens of meters high. The tree covered with lightning shone brightly, and its momentum was fierce. Following that, the purple lightning swaying up and down suddenly showed a dreamy distortion, accompanied by an unusually domineering aura. The space was scorched and twisted, and the purple flames shot up into the sky with a momentum that could burn the heavens. In an instant, the purple flames spread up and down the tree, like a prehistoric beast burning with flames, which was frightening. What is this? What is Chu Hen doing? Everyone was shocked and confused, completely at a loss. Then another huge vine drilled out of the other side. This huge vine was shining with the holy light of the stars, dazzling. The pattern of the Big Dipper was shining in the center of the huge vine. Crack! In the next second, the 7 specks of light were like a broken cocoon. Nimble and light butterflies flew out from within. The most surprising thing was that those butterflies fluttered their wings, and half of them were of the same color. The butterfly wings on the left were black, and the butterfly wings on the right were white. Yin and Yang Qi. Yi Yao murmured softly. Clang! At the same time, the 9th heaven was overshadowed, and black clouds covered the sky as if a divine punishment was about to come, gathering above everyone's head. There seemed to be an ancient and melodious battle song spreading between heaven and earth. Streaks of purple lightning bolts streaked across the sky, as if a terrifying divine punishment was about to descend. Just when everyone was panicking because of the chaotic scene in front of them, Chu Hen was still lying motionless in the same place. His deep eyes seemed to gather the sun, the moon, and the stars, as well as the endless universe. 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, 3 begets all things. All things are created, and the world contains the great Tao, created by me, and the great Tao is for me. It was as if he had escaped into a magical world. All kinds of power that Chu Hen controlled were combined at his will. The power of the 3,000 great Tao was like the sun, the moon, and the stars. At this moment, the hidden spirit in the world was circulating with Chu Hen. Wherever his consciousness went, it was like an extended territory and no one could get close to it. Boom! Suddenly, heaven and earth shook and all colors changed. Beams of purple light that shot straight into the sky cracked open on the ground. The towering tree that was burned by the flames exploded in the sky like the collapsing heavens of doomsday. At the same time, the giant vine that was swaying with the holy light of the stars was crushed by a violent black hand. The overwhelming destructive storm immediately caused the earth to collapse and the 9th heaven to collapse. The rapidly rupturing cracks on the ground exploded inch by inch. Mu Feng, Long Xuanchuang, Yi Yao, and the others all turned pale. However, this terrifying power directly bypassed them and didn't hurt them at all. What's going on? What happened to Big Brother Chu Hen? Everyone became more and more uneasy. Mu Feng clenched his hands into fists, and his eyes were fixed on the chaotic sky and earth. His voice trembled, and he said in a low voice, "This is the power of the domain, the power of the domain." Hearing these words, the few of them were even more astonished. Clang! Before his voice died away, the countless terrifying lightning beams gathered in the void directly connected with the light beams that shot out from the ground. The terrifying power that could destroy everything squeezed the space, and in an instant, the giant cliff under everyone's feet was forcibly crushed into powder. The vortex storm, mixed with all kinds of powerful forces, completely sealed the mountains and rivers within a radius of 200 miles. The 3,000 great Tao, all kinds of creation. This is the great Tao domain. Chapter 1476. Buzz. It was a dreamlike, chaotic world, separated from everything in the world. It seemed to return to the vast and endless universe. The faint spatial rhythm was like ripples on the surface of the water, rippling in the depths of one's soul. Is that so? Are you satisfied? A flat and vast path leading to the heavens, a bridge paved with corpses, a dark and gloomy scarlet throne. A pair of pitch-black eyes that were like black abysses were like endless black whirlpools, as if they were going to pull the entire world into them. The giant scarlet scythe in his hand symbolized destruction and slaughter. It was also an insurmountable power. Chu Hen stood alone on the platform that was filled with corpses. The blood flowing slowly under his feet was like countless intertwining red vines. The two of them looked at each other. One was cold and calm. The other was dark and gloomy. "Submit to me. You will get more than this." The pitch-black eyes were like whirlpools that dragged souls. At this moment, Chu Hen let out a frivolous laugh. "I think you're mistaken. This is my domain, Rumble." The moment his voice fell, countless violent and terrifying lightning beams directly pierced through heaven and earth, like the descent of a world-destroying divine punishment. In an instant, the huge, dreamlike space was attacked by a violent storm, and the entire world burst like a burst of bubbles. The 3,000 great Daos, all kinds of creation. This is the great Daos domain. Rumble. It could destroy heaven and earth, and the mountains and rivers collapsed. A storm that was mixed with endless destructive power instantly swept in all directions. Mu Feng, Xiao Xiaowan, and the others who were in the middle of this chaotic power felt like they were in the eye of a hurricane that was about to collapse at the end of the world. Any destructive power around them seemed to be able to crush them into pieces. Is this the legendary domain power? How can it be so terrifying? Han Ichuan said with a trembling face. It has definitely surpassed the ordinary domain power. Even the elders in our clan can't reach this level, Xiao Xiaowan said. Yi Yao and Long Xuanshuang were unfamiliar with the term domain power. The former asked in confusion, "What exactly are you talking about? What is domain power?" Everyone's eyes narrowed. Mu Feng exhaled deeply before he enunciated each word clearly. Territory energy. Only an eminent Saint King stage powerhouse would be able to control it. Great Saint King realm. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard this. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Seventh Order Saint King realm. He had directly stepped into the Great Saint King realm. How shocking was that? Through ups and downs, I see my friends clearly. Great sorrow and great joy recognize yourself. The Saint King realm was a pure increase in strength, but the Great Saint King realm was a leap in the state of mind. Some people were stuck at the bottleneck for hundreds or thousands of years, unable to comprehend the scope of the domain. But there were also people who quietly comprehended it in the midst of great sorrow and joy. The crowd did not know what Chu Hen had been thinking about in the past few days, nor did they know where his consciousness had gone. Perhaps, in the eyes of the crowd, it was only a few days, but in Chu Hen's world, it might have been several years, more than 10 years, or even longer. 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, 3 begets all things. There were thousands of mysterious methods in the world, and they were endless. His silent heart would break through at some point in time, transforming from a cocoon into a butterfly. When the violent and chaotic energy gradually calmed down, the dark sky gradually brightened up. Under everyone's shocked gaze, the huge cliffs under their feet suddenly disappeared. The mountains, rivers, and peaks within a radius of more than 100 miles had all turned into ruins. The forest was gone, and the river flowed backward. The sky and earth had been turned upside down. Terrifying. It was truly terrifying. Everyone frowned as they looked in the direction where Chu Hen was. The sky was covered in frost and dust, and Qi inscriptions were circulating. The figure that had been lying motionless for many days had now stood up. Although his clothes and hair were dirty, the aura that his body exuded gave off a feeling of rebirth. His eyes were still deep, his facial features were sharp, and the demeanor revealed between his brows was full of a transcendent aura. It was as if he had washed away the mortal aura of the world, giving off an indescribable aura of awe. "Brother Chu Hen!" Yi Yao hurriedly ran forward. The others immediately followed. Everyone wanted to say something, but they did not know what to say. It was as if there was no need for them to say anything. Chu Hen already knew what they were thinking. Looking at the few people who were still concerned, but also a little uneasy. Chu Hen looked up and said calmly, "I'm fine. I've caused you trouble these days." Hearing this, everyone's suspenseful hearts could not help but relax. "You," Mu Feng gently punched the other party's chest. "It's good that you're fine." Long Xuanzhuang's eyes were full of complicated emotions. "Brother Chu Hen, have you broken through to the great Saint King realm? Was that the power of the domain just now?" Yi Yao asked curiously. Chu Hen smiled slightly, which was considered as a tacit agreement. Immediately, his gaze turned to Mu Feng and Xiao Shaowan. "I have something that I need your help with." Everyone was stunned. "You need my help?" Xiao Shaowan was puzzled. Mu Feng's eyes darkened as he vaguely guessed something. "You want to fight with them? But you've just broken through to the great Saint King realm. Why don't you bear with it for the time being?" However, Chu Hen's eyes did not show the slightest bit of emotion. He replied in a deep voice, "I have my reasons." The few of them were silent. They knew that once Chu Hen had decided on something, it was impossible to change it. Mu Feng gritted his teeth. "What do you want us to do?" About an hour later, at the city gate of Daocheng, Chu Hen, who had already washed up, changed into new clothes and shaved off the stubble on his face. The gloominess and decadence that shrouded him for the past few days had all faded away. What replaced it was an even more dignified appearance than before. Will City, Lord, she come back in the future? After knowing that everyone was leaving, Aing came out to send them off. Even before they parted, she was still thinking about Qilan. The few of them looked slightly gloomy. An imperceptible touch flashed through Chu Hen's eyes. Immediately he smiled and said, "I will." "Really?" Ah Ying's eyes lit up. "Yes." Chu Hen nodded and said, "I'll leave it to you during the days when teacher is not here. If there's anything you can't solve, go to Man Xiong in Man City. He will help you." "Man Xiong? He's the city lord of Man City. Do you know him?" "Yes." While agreeing, Chu Hen flipped his hand and took out an ancient scroll. "This essence extraction scripture is for you. Read it when you have nothing to do. It will be of help to you." "Oh." Ing took the scroll, but she did not know what this thing was. Chu Hen naturally would not tell her that this essence extraction scripture was a treasure left behind by great Emperor Zhao Hua. Whether an ordinary person could comprehend from it depended on their luck. After all, she had followed Qilan for 2 years. This was the only thing Chu Hen could do for her. "Thank you. I will read it properly." Ing smiled sweetly. Her pure smile was like the scenery of Daocheng, simple and clean. "Farewell, farewell." Immediately, Chu Hen and the others set off on their way back. Ing stood on a distant mountain and sent them off. She waved her hand and shouted, "You must come back with City Lord Shi in the future." Her clear and crisp voice reverberated in the mountain valley. The group did not turn back. They just walked forward quietly. Chu Hen, who was walking at the front, slowly raised his head. His deep and serene eyes were like a bottomless black abyss. An ice-cold chill crept up his proud brows. "P.S. There are 2 chapters today, so I came back a little late. There will be 3 chapters tomorrow. Also, if you're interested, you can join the Martial King Divine King's QQ group, 149825000. We welcome everyone to chat and discuss the plot. This book came from. Chapter 1477. Qian, Divine King Wu Ji's latest chapter. War God Palace. Inside a cold and quiet, luxurious hall. Above the main hall, on a throne that looked like an emperor. It's been so many days. Why hasn't the martial sect disappeared from this world? The cold and indifferent voice was like the questioning of an angry monarch, and the expressions of the people below changed. "Palace Master." A tall and skinny middle-aged man walked to the center and said, "The great Emperor Palace and the 5 Elements Divine Clan are meddling in this matter. Humph, so what? But stop your nonsense. The domineering figure on the throne stood up, looking like a piercingly cold lion that was overlooking everyone. This time, even the heavens can't keep the martial sect. Aye, Duansong said. The formless deterrence caused everyone's heart to tremble. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Their eyes were filled with viciousness and coldness. I know what to do. Humph. I'll give you 3 days to wash the entire martial sect with blood. Men, women, old or young, leave no one alive. This time, I'll tell everyone that those who offend the War God Palace will never live in peace. Yes, sharp killing, intent, swept out like a cold current. Everyone's eyes flickered with a cold light. The Midland was in a great chaos. The aftermath of the honor list competition had caused the situation in the Midland to become even more complicated. Many sects and forces chose to close their doors to avoid being affected by the current situation. I didn't expect the War God Palace to really make a move on the martial sect. Sigh. The War God Palace really wants to go all out. A mere Chu Hen has caused so much trouble. I don't know if you've heard the news, but not long ago, the War God Palace secretly sent out 3 great Saint King stage elders. 3 great Saint Kings? Where did they go? I don't know where they went, but I've received news that the 3 of them captured the sacred winged heavenly flame bird. Really? It's true. It's said that the sacred winged heavenly flame bird is currently sealed on the open heaven stage of the War God Palace. I'm afraid they're trying to snatch the Saint Beast's soul. It's impossible for 3 great Saint King stage powerhouses to just capture a sacred winged heavenly flame bird. There must be some other mission. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Furthermore, at this stage, there was no need for the War God Palace to hide their actions. Every single move made by the War God Palace and the martial sect had been closely watched by all powerful sects in the Midland. After a round of guessing, everyone couldn't help but feel suspicious. It seems like there hasn't been any news about Chu Hen, who is ranked first on the wind cloud list for a long time. Indeed, could it be that he already? A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Everyone knew that the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow that appeared in the Chaos Devil domain was originally with Chu Hen. Now that the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow had been captured and brought to the War God Palace, and there was still no news of Chu Hen, they could not help but link these matters together. The possibility is very high. TSK, dispatching 3 great Saint King Realm Masters at once just to deal with a 7th Order Saint King Realm Jr. I really don't know what to say. The people of the world who were slow to realize this all felt terrified and amazed. It could be imagined that the War God Palace hated Chu Hen to the bone. The martial ancestor must be eliminated quickly. According to the way the Palace of War does things, I'm afraid the martial ancestor won't be able to escape. I guess the Han Yun sect and the Spirit Phoenix Valley won't have an easy time in the future. The people from these 2 sects have helped the martial ancestor before. It seems like this is just the beginning. As the matter continued to ferment, many of the sects in the Midland couldn't help but feel insecure, especially those sects that had been on good terms with the martial ancestor not long ago. This time, they all tried to distance themselves from the martial ancestor. Once the Palace of War went all out, it might not be as simple as destroying a martial ancestor. If they wanted to reclaim their position as the overlord of a region, it would inevitably be accompanied by more bloodshed. Martial ancestor. Bang! Along with the chaotic light beam that rose to the sky above the sect, the giant semicircular light curtain that had protected the martial ancestor for several days burst into countless pieces like a burst bubble. Hua! Chaotic airwaves wreaked havoc. Once the shield that isolated the sect from the outside was broken, the vast mountain gate of the martial ancestor was directly exposed to the sky. In the sky above the heaven martial peak, many experts from the Palace of War and the Lingyun sect had arrived. Each of them had a cold smile on their face. but it was full of viciousness. What can you change by hiding for a few days? An old man who was emitting a fierce aura said to the people of the martial ancestor gathered on the heaven martial peak with an indifferent smile, as if he was looking at a group of trapped beasts. Feeling the strong aura coming from the old man, the people of the martial ancestor all looked extremely serious. Guxian, Dongfang Hung, Ji said in a deep voice. The old man sneered. You still remember me? But, Dongfang Hingji, you are really brave. Your disciple has actually killed so many people of the Palace of War. Dongfang Hung, Ji's eyes darkened. He looked straight into the old man's eyes without any intention of retreating. This is the rule of the Holy War. All the grudges started in the Chaos Devil domain and will end in the Chaos Devil domain. Your Palace of War is one of the most powerful forces in the Midland. Now that you have openly violated the rule, aren't you afraid of being laughed at by the world? Laughed at? Who dares to laugh at me? I'm not here to listen to your nonsense today. If you have any last words, you can say them now. Guxian's aura was aggressive, and he had no intention of retreating at all. In an instant, the people of the martial ancestor all pulled out their swords. If you want to fight, let's fight. If we have the word afraid, we are disciples of the martial ancestor in vain. Your Palace of War is indeed powerful, but our martial ancestor is not weak either. If you want to destroy our martial ancestor today, I'm afraid you will have to pay a heavy price. We swear to defend the martial ancestor with our lives. Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Wu Yan, Zhao Qingyi, and the other people of the martial ancestor all looked death in the eye. They were not afraid at all. Ha! Guxian laughed towards the sky and said mockingly, "What a group of people who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I, the elder, declare that you have lost even the chance to beg for mercy." Then he raised his old and vigorous hand and shouted, "Kill!" The monstrous killing aura pounced towards the people of the martial ancestor like a stacked tsunami. However, at this moment, a few figures with extraordinary auras hurriedly rushed over from the sky behind them. "Wait, Elder Ge, please listen to me. Hua!" The airwaves were undulating, and a circle of vigorous airflow spread between the two armies. Tang Bufan, Wei Yan, Lininghe, and Yang Zongxiao of the Five Elements clan flashed to the square of Heaven Martial Peak. Elder Ge, the rules of the Holy War were set by many forces in the Midland. Your Palace of War is the leader of all forces. How can you break this rule? Tang Bufan said loudly. That's right. I hope Elder Ge will reconsider. I hope the War God Palace will reconsider. Lin Inghe also advised. You two juniors are qualified to teach me what to do. Guxian's eyes were still filled with disdain. If the Palace of War is stubborn, who would dare to participate in the Holy War in the future? Who would still respect you? Lin Inghe replied with a piercingly cold gaze. How dare you? Guxian shouted, and a dark golden halo swept out from his body. The power of the realm. Everyone's expression changed. In the next instant, a dark golden halo spread out in all directions, and like a canopy, it enveloped more than half of the Tianwu Peak. Everyone who was inside felt a huge pressure assaulting them. Their bodies felt like they were being stabbed by sharp thorns, and they felt an indescribable pain. It's the realm of sharpness. Someone exclaimed. The realm of sharpness was Guxian's unique realm power. It was mainly sharp and murderous. People who were inside it would feel like they were on the edge of a blade, and it would be extremely uncomfortable. Guxian stared coldly at the people from the Great Emperor Palace and the Five Elements clan. If you dare to meddle in my affairs again, I will make you die worse than that little bastard Chu Hen. Clang. This sentence was like a bolt from the blue that instantly exploded in the hearts of everyone in the martial sect. What? Junior brother Chu Hen is dead? Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, Wu Yan, and the others all widened their eyes, and their faces were filled with deep shock. Even Dongfang Hengji clenched his fists, and his face was filled with shock. Tang Bufan, Lin Yinghe, and the others were also in disbelief. Could it be that the rumors are true? Tang Bufan frowned and muttered softly. Gu Xian's face was filled with disdain as he looked at everyone's panicked expression. Humph, that little bastard Chu Hen was killed by me personally. I'm afraid that his body has already been eaten by the wild dogs in the mountains. After saying that, he swept his gaze across the people of martial sect. Next, it's your turn. Shock. It spread to everyone in martial sect. At the same time, a trace of helplessness flashed across Tang Bufan's eyes. He looked at Wei Yan and the others, and they seemed to understand each other. Seeing this, Gu Xian's face became even more proud. He knew that the great Emperor Palace would definitely not fall out with the God of War Palace, just to stand up for martial sect. On the contrary, Lin Yinghe of the Five Elements clan sighed with regret, and then said in a deep voice, "Since the God of War Palace has already killed Chu Hen, then let's let martial sect go." Before he finished speaking, Gu Xian's eyes narrowed. Buzz. The space trembled slightly, and the area around Lin Yinghe immediately fluctuated with strong power. Lin Yinghe's body suddenly shook, and then a trace of blood flowed down the corner of his mouth. I've already said that I don't want to hear any more of your nonsense. The people of martial sect couldn't bear to see this. Senior Brother Lin, this is a grudge between our martial sect and the God of War Palace. It has nothing to do with you. You should leave. Qiu Xingyi said, even if the God of War Palace withdraws today, we will never agree. That's right, junior brother Chu Hen can't die in vain. Today, even if his blood splatters on the sect, we will fight to the death. Fight to the death. After the shock, the people of martial sect were even more furious, especially those who returned from the Chaos Devil domain. Their hearts were filled with hatred. Everyone drew their swords. It emitted a sharp edge. Interesting. Gu Xian's eyes were fierce and full of contempt. He slowly raised his hand, and the experts of the God of War Palace and Ling Yun's sect behind him also emitted a cold, murderous aura. Kill, no mercy. At the same time, Qiu Xingyi did not ask Dongfang Hengji and directly issued an order. Kill. In their hearts, Chu Hen was already an irreplaceable soul leader. The only thing they needed to do now was to take revenge. The anger of both sides overlapped and collided, like two mountains and tsunamis confronting each other. Suddenly, at this moment, bang! There was a shocking explosion. The layer of dark golden halo that shrouded Tianwu Peak suddenly shattered into countless light and shadow fragments, like broken glass. What's going on? The hearts of everyone present were all startled. Everyone subconsciously looked at sect master Dongfang Hengji. However, Dongfang Hengji still had doubts on his face. Who are you? Gu Xian's eyes were piercingly cold, and his expression was slightly solemn. The person who was able to shatter the sharp domain released by him was definitely a great Saint King. As soon as his voice fell, there was a circle of demonic purple light patterns in the air. Then, the sound of steady footsteps came from far to near and entered everyone's ears. In an instant, everyone's eyes swept to the top of Tianwu Peak Square at the same time, the heaven stairway leading to the foot of the mountain. Halfway up the heaven stairway, a young figure exuding a cold aura was walking towards Tianwu Peak step by step. Chapter 1478. Ta, ta, the sound of steady and slow footsteps was transmitted into everyone's ears. Everyone's gazes gathered on the heaven stairway were simultaneously gathered on the figure on top of the heaven stairway. Every time the figure took a step, the surrounding airflow would fluctuate slightly. Ripples of purple light spread out from his feet like ripples on the surface of the water. Who was he? Gu Xian could not help but squint his eyes. His cold face revealed a hint of coldness. Tang Bufan of the Great Emperor Palace, Lin Yinghe of the Five Elements clan, and the people of the martial sect were still confused. The other party's figure looked especially familiar, getting closer and closer. Soon, the appearance of the figure that emitted a cold aura was reflected in everyone's eyes. The sect master of the martial sect, Dongfang Hengji, Ao Yunmanner, Luo Tsang, and the other peak courtyard masters suddenly widened their eyes. Qiu Xingyi raised his eyelids and was the first to exclaim, "Junior brother Chu Hen!" His words caused the hearts of everyone present to explode. Wan Li, Wu Yan, Zhao Qingyi, and the others' eyes lit up in surprise and joy. It's really junior brother Chu Hen. He's back. This Gu Xian actually lied to us. Looking at Chu Hen, who had appeared at this place, Gu Xian was the most surprised in his heart. He stared at the young figure walking towards him with an extremely disbelieving gaze. How? How is it possible you're not dead yet? That day, 3 great saint kings were dispatched, 3 domains superimposed. Gu Xian even personally used 2 sharp cold spears to penetrate the opponent's heart and qi palace. Under such circumstances, Chu Hen was just like a dead man. Astonishment, surprise. Gu Xian stared at the opponent's face. He even suspected that the person in front of him was not Chu Hen at all. However, just as he approached the Heaven Martial Peak Square, the moment when Chu Hen stepped on the last step, he raised his cold eyes. His pupils revealed a dark aura, as if he was looking at the Grim Reaper. In an instant, Gu Xian only felt that the depths of his soul trembled. Fear that arose from the bottom of his heart. The corner of Chu Hen's mouth lifted slightly, revealing an indifferent smile. You can say your last words. What? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. Even Tang Bufan, Wei Yan, Lin Yinhe, and the others were dumbfounded. Did he know who the person in front of him was? He was a transcendent being of the great Sage King level. At the same time, Gu Xian's face darkened as he glared at Chu Hen like a ferocious beast. Humph, I don't care what you are. Since I can kill you once, I can kill you again. Sharp domain. As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Xian's aura stacked up, and together with the astonishing majestic momentum of a mountain, the dark golden light screen once again whizzed out, crushing towards Chu Hen. The pressure from the collision completely trapped Chu Hen within. The space around it was distorted in a strange way. However, before the people of the martial sect behind him were ready to attack, Chu Hen's eyes turned cold and a purple light immediately exploded into the sky. The incomparably overbearing purple light was like a ferocious shockwave, once again forcing Gu Xian's sharp domain to retreat step by step. What? Gu Xian's expression changed, and before he could react, a layer of light purple light immediately formed a trapping force, enveloping him. Gu Xian, who was within the purple light screen, was even more shocked. He suddenly found that the power in his body had fallen into an extremely slow state. This is... Domain, how could this be? How long had it been? And he had already entered the Great Sage King level. Without any chance to be shocked, Chu Hen raised one palm and reached out in the direction of Gu Xian. Domain of heavenly light blade, together with the corner of his mouth raised into a cold arc, Chu Hen spread his 5 fingers outwards, accompanied by an extremely strong, explosive power. Crack! Rapid thunder and lightning screeched together. In an instant, everyone's heart suddenly trembled, and their pupils rapidly shrank. They saw dozens of purple thunder and lightning spears appear out of nowhere, impressively penetrating Gu Xian's tall and thin body. Boom! Everyone's heart was filled with terror. No one could clearly see what had happened just now. In the blink of an eye, Gu Xian's body had already been pierced by violent, sharp lightning pillars, like a hedgehog. Brilliant purple lightning intertwined and flashed around his body. Gu Xian's eyes widened in extreme disbelief. Looking at that distorted face, there was not the slightest bit of pity on Chu Hen's face. Now, you don't even have the chance to say your last words. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Hen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. Bang! There was a violent, deafening explosion, and the sky was filled with flowers of lightning blooming. In an instant, under a shrill scream, Guxian's body was directly torn into pieces. Even his purple mansion saint soul was forcibly smashed by the wanton, intertwining lightning arcs. Oh my God! Hiss! Everyone who witnessed this scene felt that their hearts were about to stop beating. Dongfang Hengji Luo Tsang, Ao Yunzhuang, Qiu Xingyi, Tang Bufan, Liningha, and everyone else present were all extremely shocked. With a wave of his hand, he killed a great sage king level expert. Chu Hen's means could be said to be earth-shattering. Looking at Guxian, who was killed in an instant, many of the invaders from God of War Palace and Lingyun's sect were shocked to the core. All of their faces were ashen, and their eyes were filled with fear. There was no longer any trace of the arrogance they had before. Go! Retreat! Retreat immediately. Without the slightest hesitation, everyone immediately turned around and fled. However, just as they turned around, the voice behind them, which was like the announcement of the god of death, reached their ears. Since you are here, then all of you shall stay. As soon as he finished speaking, the destructive spiral airflow immediately shrouded everyone. Immediately after, a storm of purple electric demonic flames that tore the sky apart exploded in the crowd. Bang! The heavens and earth lost their color, and the 9 heavens were about to split apart. The purple hurricane whirlpool swept across the land, crisscrossing with the power of countless dense thunderbolts, and for a moment, screams of fear and panic pierced the eardrums. Like a sacred flame burning a group of demons, under the trembling gazes of the crowd, wherever the purple hurricane went, it burned everything. A mighty wave of air whistled in the sky above the martial sect. The domineering flames of the burning sky made the mountains and rivers lose their color. Broken bodies mixed with dust fluttered in the sky. In just 2 blinks of an eye, more than thousands of people from God of War Palace and Lingyun's sect quietly turned into endless dregs and ashes. Terrifying. It was so terrifying that no one dared to even dream about it. Such a scene constantly impacted the visual nerves of everyone on Tianwu Peak, including the sect master of the martial sect. Dongfang Hengji at this moment looked at the back of Chu Hen with an unprecedented horror. More than 1,000 experts, as well as a great Saint King realm powerhouse. As if the ants in the palm of Chu Hen were all buried here. Such power was actually so terrifying. There was no ripple in the eyes of Chu Hen. With an indifferent face, he turned around and looked at the people of the martial sect who had long been stunned. The situation changed too quickly. No one could react at all. How long had it been? Chu Hen was so powerful that no one dared to recognize him. Sect Master, I am back, Chu Hen said. Everyone's expression slightly relaxed. Dongfang Hengji let out a deep sigh of relief and nodded. It's good that you are fine. Qiu Xingyi, Wu Yan, Wang Li, Zhao Qingkai, and the others immediately greeted him. Junior brother Chu Hen, you have broken through to the great Saint King realm? Yes. Chu Hen nodded. What was that power just now? It's nothing, it's just a great Dao realm that I control. Great Dao realm? Hearing these 4 words, everyone was shocked and sighed. The martial organization disciples who were already in awe of Chu Hen looked at him as if he was a deity descending to the mortal world. Why are you alone? Where are junior sister Xuanshuang and junior sister Yi Yao? Zhao Qingyi asked. They are behind. I came first. Chu Hen also knew that after the God of War Palace dealt with him, they would immediately target the martial sect. Therefore, he rushed back first. Fortunately, he was still in time. Immediately, Chu Hen turned his gaze to the people of the Great Emperor Hall and the 5 Elements Holy Clan not far away. Tang Bufan, Wei Yan, Lin Yinghe. These top geniuses on the ranking list did not even have the courage to look at Chu Hen at this moment. One was number 1. One was number 2. Although there was a difference of 1 ranking, there seemed to be a huge gap between them that could not be crossed. Chapter 1479. Chu Hen's appearance resolved the martial sect's crisis in a timely manner. His illusory, lightning-like means had directly shocked everyone. A great Saint King and more than 1,000 experts were annihilated in an instant. Such methods shocked everyone in the martial sect, as well as the people from the Great Emperor Palace and the Five Elements clan, although they were all geniuses on the Wind Cloud list. At this moment, Tang Bufan felt a deep sense of helplessness. The gap between the first and second place was like a vast chasm. As for Chu Hen's footsteps, he was already far inferior to him. Thank you, everyone from the Great Emperor Palace, for coming to help. On behalf of the martial sect, Chu Hen is very grateful. Chu Hen cupped his fists and said to Tang Bufan and Wei Yan in a calm tone. Tang Bufan did not know how to reply and could only raise his hand and nod. Then, Chu Hen walked to the people from the Five Elements clan. Brother Lin, how are your injuries? Lin Inghe waved his hand. It's fine. He paused and continued. Congratulations on breaking through to the Great Saint King realm. It seems that you will rule the Wind Cloud list for a long time. Chu Hen faintly smiled. Today, Brother Lin injured yourself for our martial sect. Chu Hen will remember this in my heart. If you need my help in the future, I will not hesitate to help you. Seeing Chu Hen's attitude towards Lin Inghe, Tang Bufan and the others from the Great Emperor Palace could not help but feel a little awkward. This was a completely different attitude. However, everyone was well aware of the situation. When Guxian made things difficult for them, the Great Emperor Palace did not go too far. They tried to persuade him as much as they could and would not become enemies with the War God Palace for the sake of the martial sect. In comparison, the people from the martial sect were really grateful to Lin Inghe. Lin Inghe smiled. Brother Chu, you are too kind. I did not help much. Since the martial sect's crisis has been resolved, we will take our leave. Brother Lin, take care. Chu Hen did not stay any longer. Then, Tang Bufan also took his leave. They could not stay any longer. Watching the people of the Great Emperor Palace and the Five Elements clan leave, Chu Hen's eyes gradually became calm and profound. He turned back to look at Dongfang Hengji and the masters of the 4 peak academies. Everyone's expression was solemn. The atmosphere in the martial arts organization did not become relaxed because of the defeat of the foreign enemy. We've won today, but it won't be long before the War God Palace makes a comeback, Chu Hen said. Dongfang Hengji stared at the other party's calm eyes, paused, and said, Do what you want to do. The honor of the martial sect today was all brought by you. No matter what you want to do next, we will support you completely. Junior brother Chu Hen will listen to you. That's right, the martial sect will follow you to the end. Qiu Xingyi and the others also said firmly. Receiving the affirmation from Dongfang Heng's eyes, Chu Hen nodded solemnly. He then said to Qiu Xingyi, Wang Liuyan, and the others, All right, let's go somewhere first. The sky was high and the clouds were thin. The star pavilions stood in great numbers. In a luxurious hall, the Soaring Cloud sect leader, Hidong, sat on a spacious stone chair. His eyes were filled with ridicule as he stared at the 2 people kneeling in the hall. Luo Zun, Han Qiu, in the end, the 2 of you still have to kneel before me obediently. Both of them had different degrees of injuries on their bodies. The middle-aged man, called Luo Zun, directly spat out a mouthful of blood. Aft, Old man Hidong, if you want to kill me, just kill me. If you want my horse city to submit to you, then don't waste your time. You're right. Han Qiu, who was next to him, also scolded with hatred. My Flying Rain sect has had enough of you. Even if I die, I won't submit to your Soaring Cloud sect. Horse City and Flying Rain sect were the subsidiary forces that were forcefully recruited by the Soaring Cloud sect. After the Holy War conscription incident, the Soaring Cloud sect suffered an unprecedented loss. Horse City, Flying Rain sect, and many other subsidiary forces seized the opportunity to defect. Initially, they thought the Soaring Cloud sect would not be able to control them anymore. However, the Soaring Cloud sect that had submitted to the War God Palace had regained the ability to control many of its subordinate forces. Soon after, the leaders of the defected forces were captured. Do you want to die? Do you think it's that easy? Hidong looked at the two of them disdainfully. I'll let you know the consequences of betraying my Soaring Cloud sect. Someone, put these two people in the death row. Yes. A few Soaring Cloud sect's guards stepped forward and escorted the two of them out. Meanwhile, Luo Zun and Han Qiu were struggling as they scolded angrily. Hidong, kill us if you dare. Don't play tricks here. Your Soaring Cloud sect is the War God Palace's lackey. Don't wait until you're kicked out. We won't forgive you then. Ha 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 ha, you won't forgive me. I'd like to see what right you have to make a fuss here. Suddenly, at this moment, another two Soaring Cloud sect's guarding disciples rushed in from outside. Sect leader, there's an enemy invasion. An enemy invasion? The faces of Hidong and the few high-ranking elders in the hall darkened. Who's so bold? Hidong stood up and shouted. As soon as he finished speaking, a loud bang suddenly came from above everyone's heads. In the next instant, a purple beam of light pierced through the roof of the palace like a ray of light from the heavens, and then hit the ground, shattering a large number of stone bricks. What's this? Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Who are you? How dare you break into my Soaring Cloud sect? Are you tired of living? However, before he could finish speaking, the purple pillar of light shot straight ahead. It was like an indestructible divine blade, quickly slicing the inside and outside of the palace. The extremely fierce lightning light beam swept all the way down and attacked Hidong, who was right above the main hall. The latter's eyes turned cold as anger rose in his heart. Then he violently raised his palm. The powerful palm energy was like a violent wave of a tsunami. Boom! The two violent forces immediately collided with each other, causing the ground to crack. The powerful and heavy aftermath swept out in all directions. The palace that had been split from the middle was directly split into two with a bang. Sound. Like a mountain that had been split open, it suddenly collapsed on both sides. Dust flew everywhere, and rocks flew everywhere. Everyone from the Soaring Cloud sect was shocked and angry at the same time. Hidong's eyes were cold as he stared coldly at the group of uninvited guests who were standing proudly in the void. However, when he saw that the leader was young and his arms were surrounded by brilliant lightning, he was even more surprised. Who are you? Hidong asked in a stern voice. Martial Arts Grandmaster Chu Hen. What? Hearing this name, everyone from the Soaring Cloud sect was even more shocked. He's not dead yet? And why are the people from the Martial Arts Grandmaster here? Could it be that Guxian failed? Chapter 1480. 1 second to remember. There was no pop-up window for free reading. Wu Zong Chu Hen. His arrogant aura reverberated in the sky above the Lingyun sect. Hidong and the others' expressions all changed. Wasn't he already dead? Why was he here? Where is Guxian? Hidong clenched his fists, his eyes filled with coldness. Chu Hen raised the corner of his mouth and said with a playful smile, "Why don't I send you to see him?" Hidong's face suddenly darkened, and his body emitted a strong and majestic aura. "Little bastard, don't play tricks in front of me. Since you've come to me today, I'll take your life." Buzz! A mighty airwave spread in all directions. A strong red domain power swept in all directions like a wave, directly crushing toward Chu Hen and the Wu Zong people in the sky. At the same time, Hidong stepped into the air, setting off a mountain-like aura and swept toward Chu Hen. Facing the menacing Hidong, Chu Hen's face did not have the slightest hint of panic. He did not even have a trace of seriousness. Crack! In the next instant, a string of gorgeous lightning arcs was dragged through the air. Chu Hen directly charged into the range of his opponent's red domain. Humph, you're courting death. Hidong sneered. This was the range of his domain power. His opponent was completely walking into a trap. Chu Hen, who had entered the red domain power, did not move at all, and his body was swaying with a demonic purple light. The distance between the two was rapidly shortened. The terrifying aura was like a rapidly approaching meteor. Hidong reached out with one palm, and his big hand immediately turned into a claw. An extremely strong wind tore the air, and it clawed at Chu Hen's head. Go to hell! Fierce and sinister, his methods were ruthless. It was as if it wanted to smash Chu Hen's head into pieces. However, just as the claw was about to fall, Chu Hen raised his cold eyes, and a circle of light, purple light, spread out from his body. It was like ripples on the surface of the water, and it spread out infinitely. Whoosh! The resonant, vibrating sound of a sharp weapon disturbed everyone's soul. A long sword exuding a shocking sharpness suddenly appeared in front of Chu Hen. After fusing with the Heaven's Mandate sword, the formless Emperor blade flickered with a peerless divine splendor. The black blade glowed with silver frost. In an instant, Chu Hen's right hand grasped the sword in a reverse grip, and his left palm pressed against the top of the sword hilt. His body moved slightly to the side, and at the same time, his eyes shone with a cold light. Chi! Chi! Countless violent electric arcs instantly surrounded the sword. The peerlessly sharp blade pierced into Hidong's chest head-on. Hiss! The blood-stained blade pierced through his body and came out from his back. One strike, clean and efficient. He was intimidating and domineering. Boom! The expressions of the people from the cloud-soaring sect changed drastically. Their eyes were wide open, and their faces were deathly pale. Sect Master! At this moment, even Hidong himself was shocked. He lowered his head to look at the sharp sword that had pierced through his chest, and his anger just now had turned into deep fear. The formless Emperor blade in Chu Hen's hand firmly nailed his opponent, and the powerful impact pushed him back. It was like two birds colliding in the sky. However, one was an eagle and the other was a sparrow. Hidong had no ability to resist at all. The blood that flowed along the blade danced in the wind. Hidong stared at the young face in front of him with fear. His opponent's eyes were deep and cold, as if he was looking at a bottomless abyss. At this moment, he was already convinced that Guxian was dead, and the more than 1,000 people who followed him were probably wiped out as well. After being shocked, Hidong's eyes suddenly burst out with a fierce look. Then he clasped the formless Emperor blade with both of his palms, and with the burst of the hidden force, Hidong managed to struggle out of the blade. Hiss! The next second after the blade left his chest, Hidong did not have the time to care about the injuries on his body, nor did he look at the remaining people of the cloud-soaring sect below him. Without saying a word, he turned around and shot into the sky, leaving an afterimage behind him. Little bastard, it's not that easy to kill me. I won't let this go. A rather angry voice was heard. However, just when everyone thought that Hidong was about to escape, a hint of mockery appeared on Chu Hen's face. I'm sorry, but this is already my domain. What? Everyone's heart trembled. Crack! Along with the rapid and sharp roars of lightning, countless peerlessly sharp purple lightning beams suddenly appeared in the sky in front of them. Hidong's face, which was full of fear, was instantly engulfed by the purple light. Rumble. With a loud noise, it was as if a blooming flower of lightning had exploded in the sky above the cloud-soaring sect. Along with a series of urgent screams, the sky was filled with broken pieces of blood raining down. The sect master of the cloud-soaring sect, Hidong, had died. Whoosh! Suddenly, the unprecedented shadow of death immediately shrouded the entire cloud-soaring sect. All the higher-ups of the cloud-soaring sect were as frightened as cicadas in winter. The leader of the cloud-soaring sect, The leader of the cloud-soaring sect was actually killed on the spot by Chu Hen in just 2 moves. Was he a monster? They looked at Chu Hen with fear in their eyes, as if they were looking at the most terrifying demon in the world. At the same time, the people of the martial arts sect behind Chu Hen had already raised the butcher's knife in their hands. Kill! Boom! Bang! Soon, the entire cloud-soaring sect was immersed in a massacre. Panicked escape, merciless massacre. Dust and smoke were everywhere, and even chickens and dogs were in chaos. It was completely a one-sided massacre. The cloud-soaring sect, which was formed at a rapid speed, was now falling at a speed that was countless times faster. It was almost evening. The red sunset dyed the sky, but it was connected with the cloud-soaring sect, which was covered in blood like a river. The corpses were piled up like a mountain. The flowing blood was like a cheerful stream, converging on the ground. Chu Hen stood at the top of the cliff of the main peak of the cloud-soaring sect. He looked calmly at the great mountains and rivers in front of him, allowing the sunset to shine on his handsome face. The mountains and rivers were still the same. However, the cloud-soaring sect had already fallen into eternal silence. Behind him stood Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Zhao Qingyi, and the rest of the martial arts sect disciples. Everyone was silent and only stood quietly behind Chu Hen waiting. Junior brother Chu Hen. At this moment, Wu Yan's voice came from behind. Everyone subconsciously turned their heads. They saw 2 people following behind Wu Yan. They are the city lord of Horse City and the leader of the Flying Rain sect. The people who came were none other than Luo Dang and Han Qiu, who were previously imprisoned by Hidong. You can leave now. Qiu Xingyi turned around and said to the 2 of them. Luo Dang and Han Qiu looked at each other. The 2 of them paused, and Luo Dang said, I wonder if the martial arts sect has any other plans. Qiu Xingyi raised his eyebrows slightly. He looked at Chu Hen, who was standing in front of him, and replied, What do you want to say? Luo Dang let out a deep breath, and traces of blood surged out of his eyes. He said, The cloud-soaring sect has bullied us for a long time. This time, we are indebted to everyone for saving us, and we are extremely grateful. Of course, we know that your original intention has nothing to do with us, but I, Luo Dang, am also a person who will repay kindness. If the martial arts sect needs anything, my Horse City is willing to serve you. Qiu Xingyi did not reply. Everyone turned their gaze to Chu Hen. Seeing this, Luo Dang continued, Although we are just a group of people who know that we are useless, we're not willing to continue living our lives being bullied. Rather than living our days like this, we would rather assist you. The air seemed to be silent. Then Chu Hen turned around and looked at the 2 people in front of him with his calm eyes. If you are not afraid of death, go to the martial arts sect in 10 days. Both Luo Dang and Han Qiu's hearts trembled. Before they could say anything else, Chu Hen turned around and left with the people of the martial arts sect. In the evening, the setting sun gradually sank. The cloud-soaring sect had never been so quiet before. Absolute silence. A gust of wind blew across, and the air was filled with a faint smell of blood. However, this seemed to be just the beginning. The real turmoil of the Midland had just begun. Chapter 1481. While all large sects and forces in the Midland were quietly waiting for the War God Palace to break all the peaks of the martial sect and wash the entire martial sect with blood, the news about the cloud-soaring martial sect being destroyed within a single day spread out like an uncontrollable plague, like a tsunami. Then, like an erupting volcano in one night, it shocked everyone and alarmed countless sects and forces. Clang! Like the prelude of a storm, the thunders were deafening. Big news, the Lingyun Martial School was destroyed in one day. The leader of the Lingyun Martial School, Hidong, and many senior elders were killed. My God, who did this? Wu Zong! Wu Zong! These 2 words were like a steel fork, fiercely striking the hearts of countless people. Just yesterday, the Wu Zong sect might not be able to escape. The War God Palace and the Lingyun Martial School were about to wash the whole sect with blood. What about Guxian and the others? Without exception, all of them were killed by the Wuzong sect. Who did it? The leader of the Wuzong sect, Dongfang Hengji, can't be so powerful. It's Chu Hen. Boom! The word that was even louder than the Wuzong sect, Chu Hen, the man who dominated the list not long ago, was back. All of a sudden, the explosive news spread out at the speed of light. The Midland seemed to have been turned upside down. Isn't Chu Hen dead? The War God Palace sent 3 great Saint King level warriors. I don't know, but I'm sure that man is Chu Hen, and he killed Guxian and Hidong. Many people began to speculate. The Midland was completely shocked. No one could have thought that at this moment Chu Hen was not dead, but had returned in such an earth-shattering way. Before anyone could react, the Lingyun Martial School had been destroyed. This speed, this power, everyone was shocked. Without a doubt, Chu Hen was declaring war against the War God Palace, washing the Lingyun Martial School with blood, announcing the revenge of the Wuzong sect. Everyone seemed to smell the impending arrival of a destructive storm. This time, the Wuzong sect would never compromise. It's a pity that the Lingyun sect was destroyed before they could even prepare. Is it a pity? Not really. This is fate. The martial sect and the Lingyun sect are destined to fight to the death. If one survives, the other will perish. The enmity between the Lingyun sect and the martial sect could be traced back to the last holy war. Last time, the Lingyun sect crippled all the geniuses of the martial sect who had sacred physiques. This time, the martial sect had massacred all the disciples of the Lingyun sect who had gone to the Chaos Devil realm. In addition, the Lingyun school had allied with the War God Palace to deal with the martial sect. Once the martial sect counterattacked, without even thinking, Chu Hen would be the first to attack the Lingyun school. The ending seemed to have been decided long ago. The only thing that was hard to accept was that the Lingyun school had fallen so quickly. Before anyone could react, this sect, which had been living in the Midland for over 1,000 years, was wiped out from the face of the earth in a single night. The impending storm had made the entire Midland a bit restless. Wuzong, the War God Palace. Before this ranking competition, no one had ever connected these two powers together. But now, a storm was silently brewing around these two powers. The Han Yun School, in the conference hall on the back mountain. This hall was rarely open to the public. It was also the most confidential place of the Han Yun School. The leader of the Han Yun School, Xu Yuan, looked like an elegant middle-aged man. His skin was very white but not feminine. Both he and Dongfang Hengji had a kind of calmness and gentleness. However, at this moment, Xu Yuan's face was covered with a serious expression. Except for Xu Yuan, a few leaders of the Han Yun School were standing on both sides of him. Yi Zhou, the new 12th on the ranking, was also here. In front of the people of the Han Yun School, there were a few other rare guests. The leader of the martial sect, Dongfang Hengji, was supposed to sit on the same level as Xu Yuan, but at this moment he was standing on the left side of a young man. After a long silence, an elder of the Han Yun School could not help but break the stalemate first. He waved his hand and shouted coldly, "Surname Chu, this is a matter between the martial sect and the War God Palace. Don't drag the Han Yun School into this." Chu Hen raised his eyebrows slightly and only looked at Xu Yuan. "I guess the Han Yun School has been having trouble sleeping and eating these days, right?" Xu Yuan frowned and glanced at Yi Zhou, who was beside him subconsciously. He knew very well what Chu Hen was talking about. The main responsibility for this matter was on Yi Zhou. If Yi Zhou did not intervene in the matter between the martial sect and the War God Palace in the Chaos Devil world, he would not be in a difficult position now. What's the matter? We, the Han Yun School, have never offended the War God Palace. The elder shouted again. Yes. Yi Zhou stood out with an innocent face. You The elder glared at him, and he almost stepped forward to slap the other party's head. Izhou walked in front of Shu Yuan and knelt down. Master, it's all my fault. If the War God Palace wants to pursue this matter, I am willing to bear the responsibility. You make it sound nice. Why would the War God Palace let you? Before the elder could finish scolding, he realized that he had said something wrong and immediately shut his mouth. Actually, everyone in the Han Yun school knew very well. The anger from the War God Palace was not easy to extinguish. Although Izhou did not fight against the War God Palace directly, they could not guarantee the extent of the War God Palace's actions. These days, they had been worried that after the martial sect was destroyed, it would be the Han Yun school's turn next. Even if we join forces, we will not be able to defeat the War God Palace. After a while, Shu Yuan said in a heavy tone. Chu Hen looked him in the eye and said calmly, "Does the Han Yun school intend to stay here forever?" Shu Yuan clenched his fists and his eyes turned cold. Instead of living in fear day and night because of the War God Palace's revenge, why don't? Chu Hen raised his eyelids and revealed the domineering look of a king. Choose to trust me once. Trust me once. In terms of seniority, Chu Hen was not even qualified to talk to Shu Yuan. But at this moment, there was an aura that made Shu Yuan submit. Looking at Chu Hen's deep eyes, it was like being watched by an emperor. Immediately, Chu Hen raised his head slightly and said calmly, "If Sect Master Shu Yuan agrees, I will wait for you at the martial sect 9 days later." After saying that, Chu Hen waved his sleeves and left without hesitation. Dongfang Hengji cupped his fists and said, "I will leave first." Looking at the other party's eyes, Shu Yuan asked solemnly, "Dongfang Hengji, even you are willing to submit to this person?" In fact, the two were already old acquaintances. Shu Yuan was one of the few people who understood Dongfang Hengji. In the former's eyes, the other party looked indifferent and calm. But in fact, Dongfang Hengji had always been a proud man. He had a lofty and unyielding character. For so many years, Dongfang Hengji single-handedly pulled Wu Zong, who was at the end of the road, back from the edge of destruction. What he carried was not only to protect the sect, but also to revive the martial sect. Shu Yuan had always admired Dongfang Hengji, but today this proud man was willing to stand next to a young junior, which made Shu Yuan feel incredible. However, Dongfang Hengji just smiled. He has a pair of eyes that people have to believe. P.S. I have something to do today, so I can only update 2 chapters. Tomorrow I will make up for it. In addition, I hope everyone can support Wave's genuine reading. The author is so poor that he can't even eat instant noodles. Chapter 1482. Spirit Phoenix Valley. Inside a VIP pavilion that exuded an ancient aura, there was a PM on the phone. "Please have some tea. Our Valley Master will be here soon." 2 young disciples served hot tea to him. "Thank you," Dongfang Hengji replied politely. One of the disciples looked at Chu Hen on the other side with a complicated gaze. Chu Hen tilted his body slightly, and when he saw that the person was Huangfu Hao, he nodded his head. Huangfu Hao pursed his lips and wanted to greet them. However, after glancing at Dongfang Hengji, Qiu Xingyi, and the others, he finally retreated with the tray. Soon, there was a sound of light and steady footsteps outside the door. Dongfang Hengji and the others looked up. Then 7 or 8 figures with extraordinary aura walked into the hall of the pavilion. The person in the lead looked to be in his 50s, but not even 60. He was slightly plump, and his eyes were clear and bright. He had a noble air about him that made him stand aloof from the world. "I didn't know that Sect Master Dongfang was coming. Please forgive me for not coming out to greet you," the old man said in a clear voice as he entered the door. Dongfang Hengji also got up to greet him. He cupped his fists and showed the respect of a junior greeting an elder. "Valley Master Mei Zhang, sorry to disturb you. I don't know why Sect Master Dongfang is here." Without much greeting, Mei Zhang directly asked the reason. Dongfang Hengji raised his hand slightly and pointed to another figure. This is the real representative of our martial sect. He has something to say to you. Mei Zhang's eyes flashed a trace of surprise. Have you abdicated your position? Dongfang Hengji smiled and did not say much. At this moment, Chu Hen's eyes were fixed on a person behind Mei Zhang. That person was none other than Huang Fuqing. Huang Fuqing was also a little surprised by Chu Hen's sudden visit, especially after hearing about the recent events. Huang Fuqing's eyes faintly showed some concern. However, due to the different occasion, she did not show it too obviously. Junior, Chu Hen greets Valley Master Mei Zhang. Immediately, Chu Hen looked back at Mei Zhang and spoke in a calm tone that was neither arrogant nor rash. Your esteemed self's name has been like a thunderclap piercing my ears recently. Speaking of which, you brat, you have brought quite a bit of trouble to my Spirit Phoenix Valley. Mei Zhang more or less had some complaints. Let's not talk about external factors. Just based on internal factors, the Spirit Phoenix Valley's chief disciple, Xiao Yaocheng, had fallen off the altar of the honor list because of Chu Hen. After all, Xiao Yaocheng was the most powerful candidate for the next Valley Master of the Spirit Phoenix Valley. I am very sorry, Chu Hen replied. All right, this isn't your fault alone. Mei Zhang waved his hand, not intending to harp on this matter. Say it. Why have you come to my Spirit Phoenix Valley? Chu Hen looked up and replied calmly. I believe Valley Master Mei Zhang has already guessed why I'm here. You. Mei Zhang could not help but squint his eyes. His eyes were surging with an unconcealable solemnity. He then glanced at Dongfang Hengji, who was behind Chu Hen. Seeing that Dongfang Hengji was particularly calm from the beginning, Mei Zhang's face could not help but be filled with a complicated expression. Other than our Spirit Phoenix Valley, who else did you find? Mei Zhang asked in a deep voice. Han Yun sect. Did Xu Yuan agree? Not yet. Since he didn't, why did you look for me? But I believe he will come because I saw ambition in his eyes. Chu Hen's voice was calm and indifferent, but it had a deterrent force that could see through one's heart. Mei Zhang clenched his fist and smiled. But I don't have that so-called ambition. Valley Master Mei Zhang indeed doesn't have ambition, but you have a trace of fear. Mei Zhang's expression changed again. The young man in front of him had eyes as deep as a whirlpool, making it difficult to see through. In an instant, the entire hall was silent. After a while, Mei Zhang replied in a deep voice. Do you know how powerful the War God Palace is? Let's not talk about the number of forces they have. Just the number of Great Saint King stage powerhouses alone is as many as 10. Especially Duansong, his cultivation base is even more unfathomable. It's said that he already has half a foot in the heaven rank Great Saint King stage, with just a few of our low-tier sects joining forces. It's like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Listening to such statistics, everyone in the hall could not help but have a solemn expression on their faces. Even if Chu Hen had killed Guxian first, the War God Palace still had 9 Great Saint Kings. Such a lineup was enough to do whatever they wanted on the continent. At this moment, Chu Hen walked to a meter in front of Mei Zhang and looked straight at him. Mei Zhang was a little puzzled, but in the next second he only felt the space in front of him quietly overlapped, like circles of ripples on the surface of the water. In an instant, Mei Zhang felt his consciousness was dragged uncontrollably into a dark world. Chu Hen's eyes quietly turned and glowed with a strange light. At the same time, a senior elder of the Spirit Phoenix Valley, standing behind Mei Zhang, had already begun to ask the guests to leave. Everyone, forgive me for not sending you off. But in the next second, Mei Zhang's trembling voice suddenly sounded. Wait. Everyone in the Spirit Phoenix Valley was shocked. Dongfang Heng also raised his thick eyebrows. Buzz! A slight wave of air ripples spread out on the ground. Mei Zhang clenched his fists and stared at the young and stern face in disbelief. You. Chu Hen raised his head slightly and smiled without saying a word. Taking a deep breath, Mei Zhang frowned deeply, and his eyes flashed with determination. He looked at Chu Hen and said, "All right, the Spirit Phoenix Valley agrees." Every word was spoken with a pause, showing his determination. Valley Master, absolutely not. The faces of the senior Spirit Phoenix Valley behind him changed drastically. However, Mei Zhang raised his hand to signal everyone not to say anything more. The corner of Chu Hen's mouth raised into a slight arc as he cupped his fists. 7 days later, this junior will welcome Valley Master Mei Zhang at the martial sect. With that, Chu Hen directly left. Dongfang Heng, Qiu Xingyi, and the rest also cupped their fists and followed behind Chu Hen. Valley Master, what's wrong with you? A few senior elders of the Spirit Phoenix Valley were simply infuriated. The War God Palace cannot be provoked. You were fine just now. Why did you change your mind? Everyone was particularly puzzled. Mei Zhang shook his head slightly and said in a heavy tone, "I saw something. The few of them were even more startled. What thing? Mei Zhang took a deep breath and turned to look at the back view of Chu Hen and his party. A pair of eyes that can cause chaos. The scenery of the Spirit Phoenix Valley is really good. No wonder you are reluctant to leave. At the peak of the mountain range, at a glance, the Spirit Phoenix Valley was enshrouded in an immortal fog. It was beautiful and graceful. The chain bridges that traversed between the two mountains were like the great Tao of heaven and earth. It was very spectacular. Chu Hen did not leave immediately. Beside him stood another tall, graceful, and beautiful figure. Huang Fuqing smiled. I originally wanted to leave, but the Valley Master kept urging me to stay. I don't know what to do. Chu Hen also smiled. This was not surprising. It was rare for the Spirit Phoenix Valley to have a disciple that was perfectly compatible with the Battle Phoenix soul. Huang Fuqing's appearance directly broke this awkward situation. Moreover, Xiaoyao Cheng reaped what he sowed. After being devoured by the Battle Phoenix soul, it would be difficult for him to return to his peak. The Spirit Phoenix Valley naturally had to find someone to replace him. Without a doubt, Huang Fuqing was the best candidate. From the fact that Mei Zhang brought her along for the discussion, it was enough to see that the Spirit Phoenix Valley recognized and valued her. Then stay. This place is also not bad, Chu Hen said. Huang Fuqing sighed helplessly. The longer I stay here, the more guilty I feel. Even though senior brother Xiaoyao is at fault, I am the culprit that harmed him. Even though he has already left the Spirit Phoenix Valley, I still feel out of place here. This is indeed a problem. Anyway, I keep my word. If you can't stay here any longer, go to the martial sect to find me. Find you for what? Are you going to support me and my brother? Of course. The two of them could not help but laugh. Then Huang Fuqing's smile gradually disappeared, and her eyes became serious. Do you really want to declare war against the War God Palace? Chu Hen's face also became playful, and a trace of coldness appeared at the corner of his eyes. There is no way back. Huang Fuqing sighed. Indeed, at this point, there was no room for him to stop at all. The martial sect and the War God Palace, only one of them could exist in this world. Have you seen Teacher Xilan? Huang Fuqing asked. Chu Hen clenched his fists, and an imperceptible trace of sadness flashed in his eyes. Is she okay? Chu Hen smiled slightly. Yes, she is very good. After saying that, he slowly raised his head, and his gradually gloomy and cold eyes were like a sharp sword that pierced through the heavenly river, piercing through the layers of clouds and reaching the azure sky. The wind was rising and the clouds were scudding. Under the calm sky, there was an infinite, gloomy, and murderous aura. Lu Jinhan, it was about to begin. This book came from. Chapter 1483. Drip, A clear sound of water dripping came from every corner of the dark palace. The cold and quiet palace revealed a cold and majestic aura. Ha ha! Declaring war against our palace of war god? Ha! Interesting, really interesting. Duan Song, haven't heard such a happy thing for a long time. Amir, great master martial artist. Does he deserve this? On the stone throne, the majestic silhouette looked like a monarch who looked down on everything. Master. At this moment, someone walked up and said, in the past 2 days, the great master martial artist secretly visited the Han Yun Martial School and the Spirit Phoenix Valley. Han Yun Martial School and the Spirit Phoenix Valley? Interesting. I don't plan to let them go either. I'm looking forward to their arrival. There was no anxiety or uneasiness. There was only disdain in the mocking laughter. A bunch of brave things. Since they want to come, we don't have to go there ourselves. It's been so many years, the walls of the Palace of War God need to be rebuilt with fresh blood. The Midland was shrouded in uneasiness for many days in a row, starting from the massacre of the Ling Yun Martial School. An incomparably violent storm seemed to be brewing in the world. All sects and forces locked their doors one after another, and even stopped many missions that were carried out outside. Everyone faintly felt that the sky above the Midland was covered by a suffocating dark cloud. It seems that the Midland is going to change. In the Five Elements clan, an old man leaned on a walking stick as he gazed at the gloomy sky with his muddy eyes. Behind him, Lin Ingha seemed to be in a heavy mood. Head Elder, I have an idea. After hesitating for a while, Lin Ingha said. The elderly man slowly turned around and stared at Lin Ingha's eyes, but he shook his head. We can't participate in this. Lin Ingha slightly frowned, paused, and said, You don't think the great master martial artist will win? The elderly man didn't deny it. They can't win the Palace of War God. Is the Palace of War God that powerful? Lin Ingha asked doubtfully. The old man did not answer the other party's question. Instead, he looked at the distant horizon with deep meaning. There seemed to be a shocking colossus behind the surging undercurrents in the void. If the martial sect sends people over, then reject them. Hearing the other party's words, Lin Ingha's expression changed. He clenched his fists tightly as if he was trying to suppress his restless heart. However, the martial sect did not send anyone to the Five Elements Divine Clan. The Five Elements Divine Clan did not have the opportunity to reject the martial sect's invitation. Everything seemed to have a tacit understanding. The martial sect only looked for the Han Yun sect and the Spirit Phoenix Valley, the two top-tier forces. To be more precise, he had only offended the War God Palace. As for the sects and sacred clans that had no grudges with the God of War Palace, Chu Hen did not invite any of them. Because they were facing the War God Palace, any force would feel pressured. Time. It flew past. In the blink of an eye, it was the day that Chu Hen had set. That night, a strong gale rose in the Midland. Han Yun sect and Spirit Phoenix Valley, the two great forces, rode the wind and arrived at the martial sect's heavenly martial peak with the power of tens of thousands of people. The sky was still dark. The gale that had been howling for the whole night finally stopped. On Heavenly Martial Peak, the three forces gathered. War flags fluttered in the air as the leaders of the three great sects gathered. On the martial sect side, Chu Hen and Dongfang Hung Ji took the lead, followed by the leaders of the four great peaks. Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Wu Yan, Long Xuanchuang, Yao, and the others who had already returned stood on the north side. Han Yun sect's leader Xu Yuan, the prodigy on the ranking list Yi Zhou, and the other disciples stood on the east side. Spirit Phoenix Valley's leader Mei Zhang led many high-level experts, and Huang Fuqing stood on the west side. The wind was howling and the water was cold. There was no unnecessary talk. At this point, there was no need to say anything. Heavenly Martial Peak. At the same time, the entire Heavenly Martial Peak was faintly trembling. Everyone's gaze turned towards the direction of the main peak's heaven stairway avenue. At a glance, at the foot of Heavenly Marshal Peak, a bonfire was lit and tens of thousands of people were moving. Everyone, the Horse City Luo is here. Flying Rain Sex Han Chiu is here. A few figures ascended Heavenly Marshal Peak. Two of them were Luo Zong and Han Chiu, who were accidentally rescued from the soaring cloud sect. Xu Yuan and Mei Zhang were somewhat surprised. Even Chu Hen was surprised. How many of you are here? 100,000. Luo Zong said. Everyone was slightly stunned. Han Chiu pointed to the other people beside him and said, "This is the city governor of Deer City, Yu Fei, the fort master of Sea Sky Fortress, Hishan, and the Cangzhou region's region governor, Qi Qin. We are all forces that have always been bullied by the Soaring Cloud sect." After these brothers found out about the reason why the two of us were coming here, they all said that they would come together. Looking at their determined faces, Chu Hen smiled slightly. He said, "Now that the Soaring Cloud sect has been destroyed, you will naturally not be oppressed. Moreover, once you step into the God of War Palace, you will most likely die. Why would you put yourselves in danger?" The few of them glanced at each other. Then Yu Fei, the city governor of Deer City, said, "Lord Chu Hen, before we came, we have already thought about it very clearly. It's true that the Soaring Cloud sect has been destroyed. Perhaps not long after, another Soaring Cloud sect will appear. We have been bullied in the Midland for too long. We are also waiting for an opportunity. However, this opportunity might cause all of you to lose everything and be completely annihilated." Chu Hen said. Yu Fei cupped his fists and said in a high tone, "I can die without regrets." "That's right. Since we have come, we are also prepared to not return," Luo Zong said solemnly. "That's right. Since we are already here, we will not retreat." Seeing that the few of them had already made up their minds, Chu Hen did not reply. Instead, he walked to the entrance of the stairway to heaven on the main peak. He looked at the 100,000 people who were lined up neatly at the foot of the mountain. Then, a vigorous voice spread between heaven and earth. "Everyone, it's not too late to regret," no one replied. Desolate, cold. A gust of wind suddenly rose. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, revealing the peerless aura of a king. "Cultivate my divine sword, move forward with indomitable will. Follow me across the Midland. Splash blood on the War God Palace. Let's go!" Hua! The sky-shaking aura soared straight into the sky, and the impassioned sound of the horn spread in all directions, shocking the entire 9 regions. At this moment, the eyes of Xu Yuan, Mei Zhang, Dongfeng Hengji, Qiu Xingyi, Yizhou, Wang Li, and the others were filled with endless passion. It was as if their blood had been ignited. All out. "Let's go!" The battle flag fluttered in the wind. In an instant, more than 100,000 people, facing the dawn, marched towards the direction of the War God Palace in a mighty manner. At the same time, the demon beast army from the demon realm crossed the rugged mountain range, trampling the jungle and wilderness. Wherever they went, hundreds of beasts fled, and rivers were filled up. Monstrous demonic qi swept out like a violent storm, sweeping across the sky. "Chu Hen, wait for us." Mu Feng carried the Buddha demon slayer's sword on his back. His eyes were as cold as ice. Over at the Kunchi mountain range, Qiao Shaowan, Hani Chuan, and the other experts, led by the ancestor butterfly, had already set off on the journey. The 3 forces were like the giant meteorites that were converging at full speed, about to fall towards the celestial body. Once they collided, the earth would explode, and the sky would explode. Chapter 1484. The Midland was shaking intensely. The Martial Sect, the Han Yun Sect, the Spirit Phoenix Valley, and the other factions formed an army of more than 100,000 people as they advanced towards the War God Palace. At the same time, the army of the Monster Realm and the ancestral Butterfly clan in the Kunchi mountain range were also rushing towards the battlefield. In a quiet, secret room, The walls were inlaid with pearls, which were emitting a soft glow. A square stone platform, covered with an expensive carpet, was located in the center of the secret room. A beautiful figure was sitting on the platform. Her beautiful eyes were closed, and around her body, thousands of strands of golden light were coiling. Thousands of splendid golden patterns were shining like holy light, dazzling everyone. In front of her, there was something floating. That thing was wrapped in a holy and solemn light, making it hard for people to recognize what it was. Buzz, along with a slight vibration in the air, a series of beautiful, mysterious patterns emerged on the stone platform under her. The mysterious patterns were like spirit vines that stretched out, gently interweaving into an extremely complicated ancient formation. At the same time, the ball of light in front of him also shone brilliantly, and a star-like divine radiance shone out. The dazzling light that filled the air quickly converged into her body. Swoosh, then she opened her eyes, and a pair of golden pupils, which were emitting a supreme power, emitted an amazing power. In the depths of his pupils, 8 black dots could be vaguely seen, trembling violently. Along with the power that was constantly flowing into her body, the 8 black dots were rotating clockwise. All of a sudden, the airflow in the entire secret room became extremely chaotic. The ancient magic formation extending from the platform was also changing. In the air behind her, strands of light patterns intertwined, slowly forming a pair of golden eyes, which looked like the noble eyes of an emperor. The strong power was like the undercurrent of the deep sea. The woman's eyes were like the sky, like the bright moon. However, just as the enormous aura it emitted was about to reach a critical point, the space shook with a hum. Then, like a candle that had been extinguished, the glyph formation on the ground quickly dimmed, and the tens of thousands of light spirals floating in the air also gradually dissipated. The black dots in the woman's golden pupils also stopped rotating. At the same time, the holy light faded, and then a pair of beautiful and bright eyes appeared. Failed again, Bai Qinyu's sighed softly as a trace of helplessness flashed in his eyes. She raised her hand and grasped the ball of divine light floating in front of her. There was a complicated look on her beautiful face. Then she got up, walked down the stone platform, and walked out of the secret chamber. It was midnight outside. The sky was dotted with stars, and from time to time, a stream of light streaked across the night sky. Miss, on both sides of the majestic palace, a group of silver-armored guards knelt on one knee with respectful expressions on their faces. Aren't you going to go into seclusion for several months? Why did you come out in 10 days? The leader of the guards asked respectfully. Bai Qinyu didn't respond. Instead, she said in a low voice, "How is the situation in Midland now?" Reporting to Miss, it is said that the martial sect has officially declared war on the War God Palace. Is that so? Bai Qinyu responded. She didn't say anything else and walked down the stairs on her own. War God Palace. Under the millions of stars, magnificent palaces and palaces exuded a majestic and domineering aura. Compared to other sects and forces, the War God Palace's layout was similar to imperial cities in the outside world. There were outer cities on all sides. In the center stood a luxurious main palace. Although the layout was similar, no imperial city in the world could compare to its grandeur. In fact, it wasn't even 1/100th as grand as the War God Palace. On the west side of the main palace, in the middle of the War God Palace, was a majestic square platform. On each of the 4 corners of the platform stood an enormous tower that was over 1,000 meters tall. For example, the heavenly pillar that supported the sky was extremely imposing. In the center of the platform, surrounded by the 4 towers, a sacred bird with colorful wings lay powerlessly on the ground. 4 huge iron chains with dark symbols on them were embedded in its back. The other ends of the chains were connected to the 4 towers. A steady stream of soft light flowed out of the sacred winged heavenly flame bird's body and flowed into the towers through the 4 chains. Under the starry night sky, the sacred winged, heavenly flame bird's half-opened eyes revealed a hint of helplessness. It was like a bird in a cage, trapped in despair. Inside and outside the war god palace, it was especially quiet. It was especially cold and solemn. Unknowingly, the sky gradually darkened. Gloomy dark clouds started covering the moon and the stars. An undercurrent that covered half of the Midland swept over with an unstoppable force. The morning sun rose. The first rays of dawn were coming. Just as dawn was about to arrive, a sudden violent tremor broke the silence of the night. Boom! Boom! The earth shook and the mountains shook. A city in the southern outermost area of the war god palace suddenly collapsed, as if it had been attacked by a storm. Along with a sky-high fiery light, sky-shaking battle roars tore apart the silence. Kill! Charge! The formidable army was unstoppable. War drums and bugles resounded in all directions like thunder. Enemy attack! Report to the palace master immediately! People in the city panicked and hurriedly fought back. However, like a flood that broke through a dam, the crowd surged into the inner city of the war god palace, quickly occupying a large area of the outer city. Kill! The martial sect Han Yun Martial School and Spirit Phoenix Valley directly marched in 3 directions, leading the people of Horse City, Flying Rain School, and the others, breaking through layers of the outer city. The sudden attack at dawn caught the war god palace unprepared. The people in the outer city couldn't stop the martial sect's army. More than 100,000 people rushed towards the center of the inner city like a long spear. The sun rose. The sky brightened. Along with the light of dawn, the unstoppable martial sect's army stepped on the dawn and opened up a bloody path. They advanced triumphantly, broke the city tower, and broke into the sacred main city. Kill! Thunder-like noises exploded in the air above the main city. Tens of thousands of powerful warriors rushed to the palace of the main city. However, at this moment, on a broad square outside the main palace, people of the war god palace had already gathered. On the meditation platform in the middle of the square, a majestic, king-like figure was sitting on a wide stone chair. Beside him, many powerful warriors of the war god palace were emitting a cold aura. What a surprise! They actually came here. Bang! Boom! A fierce and violent shockwave rose to the sky. The ground in front of them cracked, and hundreds of disciples of the war god palace were sent flying. An extraordinary, imposing aura enveloped them. They saw a young figure leading a group of experts with extraordinary auras, riding the wind and arriving. War god palace. Chuhen, I'm here. Thank you, brother in Ran, for your reward, as well as the other brothers' rewards. I caught a cold today. If I get better tomorrow, I will add more chapters for you. Chapter 1485. War God Palace. Chuhen, I'm here. A wave of violent and monstrous aura directly shattered the earth, shattered the tall buildings in the outer city, and sent the disciples of the War God Palace flying. The martial sect, Han Yun sect, Spirit Phoenix Valley, and the other allied forces of over 100,000 people were impressively pressuring the borders. They were like an unstoppable tsunami as they majestically barged into the inner city. Many experts of the War God Palace seemed to have been waiting for a long time. The emperor-like palace master, Duansong, sat on the Zen platform in the square in front of the main hall. Behind him and on both sides, there was also a strong aura of tens of thousands of people. One occupied the main hall. The other was at the gates. Like an army of gods and demons that was about to meet, they were ready to fight at any moment. Chu Hen stood in the lead, towering in the sky. Xu Yuan Meizhong and Dongfang Hengji followed, closely behind. Qiu Xingyi Yizhou, Huang Fuqing, Long Xuanshuang, Yi Yao, and many other geniuses on the list were also arrogant, showing an extraordinary aura. It's really that little bastard. He's not dead yet? Elder Shi and Elder Xue of the War God Palace, who were standing behind Palace Master Duansong, had gloomy expressions on their faces. There was still astonishment in their eyes. The two looked at each other and saw the confusion on each other's faces. At that time, they had witnessed Chu Hen's vital point being pierced. He couldn't be saved at all. But now, not only did the other party appear in front of them, but he also led a group of forces to attack the War God Palace, which was really unexpected. It seems that Guxian not only failed to kill him, but also died in his hands. If we had known this would happen, we would have completely destroyed him back then. Their eyes were filled with a strong sense of fierceness. However, Duansong, who was sitting on the stone chair in the middle of the square, was quite relaxed. There was a playful smile on his face as he slightly sat upright, staring at Chu Hen and the others in the sky with a playful look. "Welcome, everyone. Sorry for not going out to meet you." An invisible expert's prestige spread out. Dongfang Hengji, Xu Yuan, and the others' faces changed slightly. Just the aura it casually emitted was enough to strike fear into people's hearts. Duansong was indeed a terrifying existence who was half a step into the great Saint King realm. "You guys really surprised me." Duansong laughed disdainfully. "It's been a long time since something so exciting has happened. You lowly ants actually dare to barge into my War God Palace. Isn't it better to live in secret? Must you overestimate yourself?" Buzz, the increasingly powerful aura, was like a mountain blocking in front of everyone. Everyone felt like they were facing an insurmountable mountain, and they couldn't help but lose their fighting spirit. However, in the face of the powerful deterrence displayed by Duansong, there was not the slightest hint of fear on Chu Hen's face. His eyes were deep and surging with a cold light. "You've been arrogant for too long, and you've gotten used to not seeing others as humans. Even if we're ants, it's not your turn to trample on us." Chu Hen slowly raised his right hand and clenched his 5 fingers in the air. Clang! Along with an impassioned and resonant sound, the formless emperor blade, which was shining with a peerless sharpness, immediately appeared in his palm. Looking down from above, Ling Tian indifferently looked at the people of the War God Palace on the meditation platform in front of him. Then, Chu Hen pointed the sword at Duansong. "No matter how huge you are, today we'll make your War God Palace bleed." Every word was like a pearl that revealed its sharpness. This was a provocation from the ants to the beasts. It was also a direct declaration of war from the martial sect to the War God Palace. Once again, the scattered fighting spirit and morale gathered again because of Chu Hen's domineering aura. At this moment, even though the one in front of them was a giant that dominated a region of the Midland, they were not afraid at all. Interesting. Let's see if you'll make my War God Palace bleed, or if my War God Palace will make your motley crew bleed." Duansong's eyes revealed a fierce killing intent. Chu Hen's pupils shrank, and the divine sword in his hand shone brightly. He shouted, "Kill!" With his order, the crowd rose up. "Kill! Charge!" In an instant, the people of the martial sect all rushed towards the central square of the inner city with a sky-piercing aura. Rumble. However, in the next moment, a dazzling and complicated light formation suddenly burst out from the open space outside the square. Along with a dazzling light that soared into the sky, countless silver light beams interweaved and formed into illusionary giants. These illusionary giants were all wearing heavy armors and holding sharp swords and spears. They were just like the divine guards who were guarding this place. Boom! The illusionary giants directly raised their spears and waved their sharp swords, thrusting towards the crowd that was rushing towards them. "Be careful, it's their great protective formation," Luozhua, the mayor of Susa City, exclaimed. The sharp and extraordinary attack was like a thunderbolt that pierced through a storm. The people who were caught off guard were all sent flying. A terrifying deterrent force swept over, and the formation in front of them was immediately broken. The people at the back hurriedly launched a second round of attacks. However, these illusionary giants were like huge beasts that blocked in front of them. It was especially difficult to even get close to them. Under the fierce attack of the illusionary giants, Chu Hen's side quickly suffered casualties. Compared to the martial sect, which could only defend against the Great Protective Formation, the Great Protective Formation of the War God Palace was both offensive and defensive. Moreover, it was extremely powerful. After a series of attacks, they were all pushed back. Ha 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 ha, a bunch of stupid things. The people of the War God Palace all stood on the square and looked at them with disdain. Elder Shur sneered. You can't even break the Great Protective Formation, yet you still dare to speak arrogantly, saying that you want to massacre the War God Palace. What a joke! Ants are ants. No matter how many of them gather, they are still a bunch of useless trash, facing the ridicule of the crowd. A frivolous look appeared on Chu Hen's face. Humph! In the next moment, Chu Hen flew up and leaped into the sky. Immediately, a terrifying sharp sword force that swept through the 9 heavens suddenly shrouded down. The hearts of the people present were shocked. Following that, the terrifying sword chi storm immediately converged behind Chu Hen, forming a peerless azure figure that was thousands of feet tall. Blue light flickered, and a cold aura shook the sky. Chu Hen waved his hand, waving the formless emperor blade in his palm. Rumble! In the same second, the thousands of feet tall azure figure also took out the dazzling heaven-punishing divine sword that was like a pillar of the sky. As endless blue light gathered on the huge sword, a destructive storm sealed the sky above the square. This is Han Yun sect leader Shu Yuan, Spirit Phoenix Valley leader Mei Zhang, and the others' expressions changed slightly. Pairs of trembling eyes reflected the blue light. Infinite sword. Buzz! The aurora sword rain lingered and turned into endless sword blades. The thousands of feet tall azure figure directly slashed down from the sky, sweeping up an incomparably terrifying impact towards the main palace, square below. Bang! Heaven and earth shook unceasingly, and airwaves swept across the sky. Under countless shocked gazes, a vast and chaotic silver halo exploded in the middle of the sky. Along with a deafening rumble, the terrifying sword Chi crushed down, directly crushing the illusionary giants into pieces. This sword, heaven punishing earth. Not only was it a critical strike from Chu Hen after he stepped into the great Saint King realm, but it was also a shocking sharpness after the formless emperor blade devoured the destiny sword. Its terrifying power was many times stronger than when it killed Lei Zhen of the Thunder Saint clan in the Chaos Devil domain. Boom! The ground outside the square burst open rapidly, and the sky was filled with broken stones like an endless swarm of flying moths. Like broken glass, the protective array of the War God Palace immediately exploded into millions of ice crystal fragments. Shocking! The faces of the people of the War God Palace immediately darkened. Domineering. The morale of the martial sect, Han Yun sect, and Spirit Phoenix Valley's side soared. Breaking the array with one sword was a declaration of war. Chu Hen pointed his sword at the world, venting the supreme domineering aura. Kill! Chapter 1486. Qian, the latest chapter of Divine King Wu Ji. Kill! A sword broke the formation. The group of heroes rose. Together with the explosion of rocks and dust, martial sect, Han Yun sect, Spirit Phoenix Valley, Horse City, Flying Rain sect, and other forces directly launched an all-out attack. The War God Palace was also burning with anger. Kill! With a command, the tens of thousands of people from the War God Palace rushed down the square Zen platform, waving their sabers and long swords to the people in front of them. Boom! Bang! The inevitable war had begun. The two groups of people were like mighty scourges and fierce beasts, directly fighting against each other. It was an extremely spectacular scene, like two groups of beasts converging, covering the sky and earth, erupting into a fierce war. A group of trash dares to invade my war god palace. Today, you will not be able to leave. On the Zen platform, a few powerful figures with extraordinary aura around Duan Tsang also leaped out, each of them treading on the air, releasing the power of the domain that only great Saint King realm experts could control. At the same time, Martial Sect's Sect Master Dongfang Hengji, Hanyan Sect's Sect Master Shuyuan, and Spirit Phoenix Valley's Sect Master Meizhang also treaded on the air, unleashing a powerful aura to launch an attack. Since it's a fight to the death, we will fight to the death. Kill! Several figures immediately collided head-on. The sky and earth changed color, and the wind and clouds changed. Many different powerful domain forces swept across like stormy waves, violently confronting and bombarding each other like volcanoes and tsunamis. Dongfang Hengji, you are really arrogant. Have you forgotten how you trembled in front of this elder 30 years ago? A tall and thin man in his 40s or 50s appeared directly in front of Dongfang Hengji. His slightly sunken eye sockets emitted a green poisonous light, like two deadly poisonous snakes entrenched in his eyes. Looking at the strange man in front of him, the corner of Dongfang Hengji's eyes turned cold, and he said sternly, "Xian Luan, hey, you still remember me?" "How can I forget? The humiliation you gave me, I will never forget it." "Ha ha ha ha. Well said, the humiliation I gave you last time. Today will be your end." You're wrong. This is the time for you to repay your debt." After that, Dongfang Hengji raised his arms outward, and a circle of dazzling, colorful light patterns spread out like a tide. "Chaos Domain, I haven't seen you for 30 years, but you have improved a bit," the elder of War God Palace called Xian Luan said indifferently. "I've improved, but you're still stuck at the same spot. Courting death. The grudges of the past, the anger of today." Dongfang Hengji immediately fought with Xian Luan. The domains of the two sides continued to collide violently, causing the surrounding space to distort rapidly. "Old man Meizhang, who gave you the courage to do this? You actually barged into this place?" In front of Meizhang was another burly man who looked like an orc. "Luoya." Mei Zhang's eyes were cold, and his face was filled with coldness. "Haha, I really don't know what you're thinking. However, I'm extremely happy that you're able to come here. After all, I don't have to personally make a trip to your Spirit Phoenix Valley." Luo Ya's mocking laughter was like looking at a lamb in trouble. Mei Zhang clenched his fists and laughed. "It seems that I didn't come here in vain." "Oh, I'm very happy that you can say this. It's because of you that I don't doubt whether we made the wrong choice." After that, a majestic force overflowed from Mei Zhang's body. He didn't show any signs of aging, and his cold eyes revealed a sword-like sharpness. "Madman!" Luo Yi sneered, and then he also burst out with a force that was like a mountain torrent and pounced on the other party. Han Yun Sect's Sect Master, Shu Yuan, was currently engaged in a fierce battle with a woman who looked like she was in her 40s. Although the woman's facial features were not ugly, her face revealed a sharp and cold look. Her pair of triangular eyes were cold and sharp, causing people to feel fear. Han Yun Sect really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. "I'm going to sacrifice all of your souls to my blood furnace." As she spoke, her skinny hand that was like a chicken's claw turned over, and a small cauldron appeared in her hand. Most ordinary cauldrons had 3 legs, but this cauldron had 5 legs. On each leg, there was a poisonous creature. They were poisonous snakes, toads, centipedes, scorpions, and spiders. 5 poison cauldron? Shu Yuan's expression changed slightly. At least you know what's good for you. Today, I'll use your blood to feed this 5 poison cauldron." The woman grinned, and it was very sinister. She condensed her palm, and a thick, murderous aura surged toward Shu Yuan along with the released domain power. At the same time, a wisp of blue smoke came out of the cauldron. The wisp of blue smoke pounced toward Shu Yuan. In the process of moving, a giant snake covered in green scales suddenly rushed out from within the blue smoke. Its fangs were exposed, and it was extremely ferocious. The giant snake opened its bloody mouth and bit toward Xu Yuan, the pungent smell of blood. Xu Yuan didn't panic. His eyes turned cold, and his palms raised a majestic palm force. The power stacked up like a mountain torrent, and a giant hand reached forward to meet the giant snake's head. Bang! The two forces collided and the sky darkened. The wind and clouds roared. The all-out battle caused the inside and outside of the war god palace to be turned upside down. The intense battle was comparable to the collision of stars. Under the sky, inside and outside the city tower, the incomparably chaotic battle situation quickly spread out. The weapons clashed, and sparks flew in all directions. Cold spears and halberds flickered with frost light. For the martial organization, Han Yun sect, Spirit Phoenix Valley, Horse City, and Flying Rain sect, this was definitely a fight to the death. There was no way out at all. Kill! The eyes of Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Wu Yan, and the others all turned red. It was as if they had already disregarded life and death during the great battle in the Chaos Demon Domain. The sharp blades continuously slashed at the enemy's body, causing blood to spurt out and miserable screams to ring out. At the same time, the enemy's sharp cold spears also continuously pierced through the bodies of their companions. Blood splattered everywhere, and a long, mournful cry sounded. One by one they fell. Blood splattered all over the ground of the war god palace. However, this was only the beginning. Hiss! TSK, the martial organization, and the others actually dared to come. It's really unbelievable. I also thought that they were just bluffing. I didn't think that they would really come. Outside the war god palace, at this moment, many busybodies had already gathered in the dark to watch the battle. Among them, there were many first-rate forces. If someone looked around carefully, he would find that even the great Emperor Palace, the New Moon Holy Clan, the Wind Frost City, and other forces were hiding in the dark. Looking at the two armies that were fighting against each other, the black mass of people was exceptionally spectacular. The intense scene was especially mournful. Wave after wave. Nearly 200,000 people had started a large-scale battle that had never happened in the Midland in the past thousands of years. These days, the enmity between the martial organization and the war god palace had touched the heartstrings of everyone in the Midland. But no one wanted to miss this earth-shaking battle. I really admire those people from the martial organization. The eight-armed Emperor Wei Yin shook his head and sighed. Beside him, Tang Bufan also had a deep look in his eyes and a serious look on his face. I can't help but admire their courage. Emperor Lianyu, Hu Bingyu, said, "Courage alone is useless. The difference between the fighting strength of the two sides is too big. The number of great Saint Kings is less than half, and Duansong hasn't even made a move yet." Wei Yan said in a deep voice, "Didn't Chu Hen not make a move either?" Hu Bingyu said, "Just him." Wei Yan still shook his head firmly. A month ago, Chu Hen was just a Saint King like us. Even if he has mastered the power of domain, he can't be compared with Duansong, who is half a step into the heaven stage great Saint King realm. But he killed Guxian, who is a mortal stage great Saint King, with one move. It can be seen that his cultivation is definitely above the mortal stage. Hu Bing, you seem to have some expectations for Chu Hen. After all, that man's performance on the Wind Cloud list was simply too outstanding. Now he had done something that even the great Emperor Palace didn't dare to rashly do. It was really hard for her to compare Chu Hen with an ordinary person. Wei Yan didn't argue with her. He just said coldly, "You'll know later." With this situation, the martial sect won't be able to hold on for long. In the Midland, after all, the world had changed. That earth-shattering storm arrived without delay. For thousands of years, for the first time, someone challenged the dignity of the war god palace. Even though the sky above the war god palace had fallen into a terrifying state because of the fierce collision of the power of the various domains, everyone outside the city focused their attention on the young figure standing in the sky. Holding his sword in the air, he had an imposing appearance. Chu Hen didn't make a move immediately. Duan Tsang, who was below, was still quietly sitting on the stone chair. Screech! At this time, a low bird cry came from the square on the west side of the main palace. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He lightly held the sword in his hand, dragging a beam of beautiful lightning in the air. However, before Chu Hen could go to the square on the west side, a majestic aura surged. In the next moment, a dark, gray domain directly covered him. Little bastard, this elder will send you on your way now. Dark night domain! Buzz! Accompanied by a biting cold and strong killing intent, an old man with a cold gaze astonishingly appeared in front of Chu Hen, blocking him. Under the cover of the dark gray sky, the old man's figure was like a shadow in the dark night, instantly merging into the darkness. In an instant, countless sharp rays of light that tore the air apart attacked Chu Hen from all directions. Every ray of light was like a sharp blade that could pierce through everything, showing the power to kill and destroy. Facing this life-threatening attack, Chu Hen's eyes moved left and right, following which a majestic purple flame swept out from his body with a momentum that soared into the sky. Bang! A storm of purple flames exploded like a star in the dark, gray domain. An earth-shattering wave rose into the air, and in the next second, endless killing intent was released inside. Domain flying a mortal sword. Following that, streaks of purple humanoid sword chi suddenly flashed in the void. Crack! The sound of the intersecting lightning arcs was sharp and ear-piercing, and the killing intent filled the sky and whistled in all directions. Bang! With an explosive sound, the gray dark night domain instantly exploded. Incomparably chaotic waves of air raged. Under the onslaught of the ferocious gales, a miserable body that was completely covered in blood and had lost all four limbs fell from the sky. A rain of blood scattered in the air, and the aura of death lingered. The people of the war god palace turned pale with fright. Elder Yi. Chapter 1487. A cold wind raged as killing intent filled the sky. The purple humanoid sword chi that appeared in the void was like a hunter reaping lives, causing everyone's heartstrings to tremble. Elder Yi. The faces of the people from the war god palace changed drastically when he saw the bloodied body that had been chopped off. Bang! He rapidly fell from the sky like a sandbag, smashing heavily on the platform of the plaza. Although he was not dead yet, it was a tragic sight to behold. This is? Outside the war god palace, the spectators of the major forces and sects who were hiding in the dark were also shocked by the scene in front of them. Their eyes widened and their faces were filled with shock. Even the knight figurine couldn't withstand a blow from him. The 8-armed emperor official, Wei Yan, clenched his fists as his eyes were filled with shock. What kind of monster is this guy? If Guxian and Hidong could be said to be able to maintain the last shred of calmness in their hearts after being killed by Chu Hen in a few moves, then the miserable defeat of the knight figurine made people have no choice but to reevaluate Chu Hen's cultivation. It was common knowledge that the knight figurine was a great saint king at the peak of the mortal rank. He was only a step away from reaching the earth rank. The dark night domain that he controlled was once regarded as a forbidden zone of death by the outside world. Any target that was targeted by it had almost no chance of survival. However, such a peak mortal, rank, great Saint King realm powerhouse was still cut down from the sky by Chu Hen's sword. It was truly terrifying. Could he have reached the earth rank, great Saint King stage? Hu Bingyu said in a low voice, "Impossible. That's impossible." Wei Yan denied Hu Bingyu's thought firmly. He frowned and said, "I know there are precedents of people who have directly reached the great Saint King stage from the middle and late stage of the Saint King stage. However, There has never been a case of someone surpassing the mortal rank to the earth rank, even if he had obtained the inheritance from the great Emperor Zhao Hua. It's the power of the territory. At this moment, Tang Bufan, who had not spoken since the beginning of the battle, said word by word, "What?" The people from the great Emperor Palace looked at him in shock. Tang Bufan's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He looked at the chaotic battlefield above the Battle God Palace and said solemnly, "Although he's also at the mortal rank Great Saint King stage, the territory energy he controls is just too powerful. The other people's territories are on a completely different level compared to him. That's why they can't even withstand a single blow." His words woke the dreamer up. Perhaps the range that Chu Hen's domain could extend was only at the mortal rank, but the strength of the power contained in his domain could be said to be terrifying. When the other people's domains collided with it, they seemed extremely weak. Absolute suppression of domain power? On the other side, New Moon Sacred Clan's half-demon Lai Shen Yuan's eyes narrowed into a line. There was still a look of surprise on his devilish face. Looks like he came prepared. On the other side of Wind Frost City, Situ Hanyan nodded secretly. He crossed his arms in front of him and muttered to himself, "How many more trump cards do you have? To you, is the wind cloud list just the beginning?" Behind Situ Hanya was Situya, whose face was pale. A single sword strike had caused the blood of a great Saint King realm powerhouse to splatter across the sky. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed that the rumors she had been hearing these past few days were true. She had thought that the wind cloud list was just the peak of Chu Hen's power. Who would have thought that it was just the beginning? Her second brother, Situ Shao, had died in vain. Rumble. The wind raged and the clouds scud. The murderous aura descended. Many purple humanoid sword chi overlapped like phantoms and condensed into a young figure with a peerless aura. Chu Hen held the phaseless emperor blade diagonally. There was still a trace of blood on the blade. Chu Hen's stunning performance of defeating the peak mortal rank Great Saint King Knight figurine with a single strike had greatly boosted the morale of the martial sect side. However, Duan Tsang, the ruler of the Battle God Palace, did not have any change in his expression. He was still sitting sideways on the stone chair as he stared at Chu Hen, who was hovering in the air like a king. "It's a very good territory. It's my first time seeing such a powerful territory energy. What do you think?" Chu Hen raised an eyebrow slightly. "Hee, but I'm afraid you won't be able to handle the situation alone." As soon as Duan Tsang's words left his mouth, several loud noises reverberated in the outer city. Subsequently, earth-shattering battle cries reverberated in the air from all directions. "Kill! Those who offend the Battle God Palace will be killed without mercy." In an instant, the vast crowd swarmed over from all directions. Figures with piercingly cold auras soared in the air and launched an attack on the martial sect side. Duan Tsang's face was filled with a mocking smile. "As long as I give the order, there'll be many forces willing to sacrifice their lives for the Battle God Palace. Now, you don't even have the advantage in numbers. A joint attack from both inside and outside. The numerous experts of the Battle God Palace in the inner city and the tens of thousands of people from the outer city work together to surround the martial sect, Han Yun sect, Spirit Phoenix Valley, Horse City, and the Flying Rain sect in the middle. An even more chaotic and intense battle broke out. The martial sect's formation was instantly messed up when they were attacked from both the front and the back. This time the advantage in numbers was obviously weakened. The entire place was in chaos. Hiss! Bang! Swords and sabers clashed, fists and palms collided. The crowd on the side of the martial zone was quickly swallowed up by the two dark armies. Damn it! Qiu Xingyi crazily killed a bloody path in the chaotic army. He wanted to cooperate with Yi Zhou, Huang Fuqing, and Long Xuanshuang to control the situation, but he couldn't care too much. What should we do? Wang Li and Wu Yan had their backs facing each other as they asked. We must break out of the encirclement. Otherwise, it won't be long before we are completely annihilated. Yes, let's break out from all directions. The situation instantly changed. Just a moment ago, everyone thought that the martial sect came prepared and could still fight. But in the blink of an eye, the war deity palaces side steadily gained the upper hand. The war deity palace is still the war deity palace after all. They have too many forces under them. Someone shook his head and said, "At the beginning, I was puzzled why the war deity palace's outer city was so easily breached. Turns out they purposely let them in. Looks like the war deity palace's move is not going to let anyone go. That's natural. With the war deity palace's methods, all the invaders today can forget about leaving alive." The chaotic battle broke out. Even though Qiu Xingyi, Yi Zhou, Huang Fuqing, Long Xuanchuang, and the other top geniuses on the honor list tried to break out of the encirclement, they didn't stand a chance. Especially on the war deity palace's side, there were still a few great sage king realm experts that no one could control, sealing off their escape route. They couldn't break out all. Ha! A bunch of arrogant fools. All of you shall stay here. Your blood shall be cast on the walls of the war deity palace. A great sage king, realm old man clasped his hands together, and a vigorous aura whizzed out. The power of the domain that quickly extended out was like a swamp dragging the bodies of the martial sect side. Everyone's expression changed, and they panicked. Looking at the slaughtering knife that was swinging towards them, all of them revealed a look of despair. Roar! Roar! However, it was also at this moment that shocking roars of beasts suddenly reverberated outside the war deity palace's city. Boom! Rumble! Following that, the ground was overturned and the city tower collapsed. Together with a terrifying gale that could overturn the mountains and overturn the seas, a monstrous, demonic aura came crashing down like a storm. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, it was as if countless locusts were pouncing on them. Huge beasts with earth-shattering ferocious aura trampled through the city and charged towards them. Woo! Huge beasts charged into the encirclement at the back of the war deity palace, waving their sharp claws and biting their fangs. Mournful cries could be heard as blood rained down in all directions. It's the demon region's army. The expressions of the crowd outside the city changed again and again. Looking from afar, on top of the outer city's city wall, a figure carrying a black, pagoda-shaped, demonic sword could be seen. He was like a king commanding his troops, his cold eyes filled with a thick, evil aura. Chapter 1488. Qian, Divine King Wu Ji's latest chapter. Roar. Boom. The roars of thousands of demonic beasts shook the heavens, their endless anger shaking the 9 heavens. Just as the martial sect, Hanyun sect, and Spirit Phoenix Valley's side fell into the war god palace's encirclement, several ferocious beasts charged into the battlefield with earth-shattering momentum. Kill! Mu Feng carried the demon's sword on his back as he stood at the top of the city tower. His eyes were cold as though he was a majestic king. His terrifying aura was like a huge mountain pressing down on the people behind the war god palace. In an instant, the majestic battlefield was quickly divided into countless pieces. The ferocious beasts were tyrannical and disrupted everything, breaking through the war god palace's inner and outer formations. The martial sect side, who were being attacked by the encirclement, heaved a sigh of relief and took the opportunity to launch a counterattack. It's these beasts again. The elder who released the domain power to seal the martial sect, Hanyun sect, and Spirit Phoenix Valley's retreat path immediately turned gloomy. Humph! It was you beasts who spoiled the war god palace's plans in the chaos devil domain. After saying that, the old man's eyes turned cold. Then, he flew up and headed straight for Mu Feng's location. Little bastard, die for me! Seeing the great Saint King charging towards him, Mu Feng's expression changed. He did not have Chu Hen's ferocious killing ability. Without any carelessness, Mu Feng held the Buddha demon's sword with both hands as his entire body glowed with a demonic red light. At the same time, every inch of his muscles bulged. The veins on his neck and forehead bulged like angry horned dragons. Jia! A sharp and strange whistling sound rang out. In the next second, a dark shadow emitting an endless monstrous demonic aura condensed behind Mufeng. Its slender body was shrouded in a demonic light as 12 pairs of sharp golden wings spread out from its back. Humph! It really is the aura of the Dark Empress Divine Winged Serpent. However, this little bit of power is not enough to stop me. The elder was brimming with killing intent. He directly spread out a powerful light green domain that enveloped Mufeng. Mufeng was also shocked and furious at the same time. Without saying a word, he raised the Buddha demon sword and slashed at his opponent. Old thing, eat my sword. Buzz! Layers of crimson light converged on the sword, like tassels dancing in the wind. An endless amount of powerful demonic energy gathered inside the demon sword. In an instant, it was as if Mufeng was holding a pillar of light that had been soaked in magma. He swung the giant sword horizontally, bringing forth a heaven-splitting divine might as he slashed down. The old man sneered. The condensed true essence converged in his palm. The majestic palm force was like a torrent of waves as it welcomed the demonic sword. As soon as the two collided, a deafening explosion immediately erupted between heaven and earth. Like a heavenly pillar smashing into a mountain, a violent and chaotic power immediately rippled out between the two. Bang! With a heavy sound, Mufeng was directly sent flying along with his sword. Like a heavy sandbag, he heavily smashed into the city tower behind him. The astonishing and terrifying impact caused the entire city wall to collapse. In the pile of rubble, Mufeng climbed up with the demon's sword in his hand. He felt salty in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. Old thing, you're quite fierce. I almost peed my pants because of you. Seeing that Mufeng was still able to stand up after taking his palm, the elder's eyes were filled with dense killing intent. As expected of someone who has fused with the demon emperor's bloodline, you're still alive. It seems that no matter what, I can't let you live. After saying that, the elder raised his palm again. Along with a surging deterrent force, a seemingly material demonic hand immediately enveloped Mufeng's head. The shadow of destruction quickly pressed closer. Mufeng's eyes were filled with seriousness. However, the injuries in his body and the pressure of the domain made it difficult for him to move. Whoosh! Suddenly, a light beam of light swept past, and a pair of delicate hands directly grabbed Mufeng's shoulder and then instantly disappeared. Boom! The earth split open and rubble collapsed. The terrifying impact crushed in all directions, causing a huge palm print that was hundreds of meters across to appear on the ground. The spread of the air wave was like a rapid storm, overturning the ruins on the ground. Damn, that was close. I almost died. Mufeng broke out in a cold sweat. I say, why are you pretending? Do you really think you're Chu-Hen? Luckily, I came in time. Otherwise, you'd be seeing the King of Hell. Ancestral butterfly. The great Saint King Realm Elder's eyes were filled with coldness as he stared coldly at the agile, six-winged figure hovering next to Mufeng. Humph, you came at the right time. This time, I'll get rid of you too, six-winged ancestral butterfly. Hey, old man, I'm not going to fight with you. Qiao Shaowan grabbed Mufeng and quickly retreated from the elder's domain. Then she shouted loudly, Second Elder, come and save us! As soon as she finished speaking, a powerful aura whizzed over from the other side of the sky. A majestic figure with an extraordinary bearing swept over with the wind. Behind him were 2 pairs of dazzling butterfly wings. Although he only had 4 wings, the aura he exuded was extremely powerful. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, many experts of the ancestral butterfly clan also stepped into the war god palace's inner city. Especially vigorous life force poured into the martial arts great sect and the demonic beasts. It was like a source of life replenishment and the injured people and demonic beasts quickly recovered from their injuries. Humph, I'm afraid the ancestral butterfly clan wants to be completely exterminated, right? Do you have the right to meddle in the affairs of the human clan? The elder looked at the ancestral butterfly clan's second elder coldly. The latter had a determined look and said resolutely that Chu Hen has done a great favor for the ancestral butterfly clan. Today I'm here to repay the favor. Ha 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 ha. What a great way to repay the favor. Since you've stepped into the human clan's territory, don't blame the War God Palace for being merciless. The war broke out completely. The Monster Region's army and the ancestral butterfly clan joined in and messed up the situation in all aspects. Flames and smoke rose everywhere as thousands of soldiers fought with their lives on the line. Wherever the claws and teeth of the giant beasts went, there would be a rain of blood and limbs flying everywhere. The intense battle quickly spread to every corner of the War God Palace's inner and outer city. Hundreds of thousands of human experts and demonic beasts overturned the ground and shook the heavens. Blood stained the ground and corpses were everywhere. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot as they let the blood shower and enjoyed the sound of sharp weapons piercing through the enemy's chest. At this stage, there was no way out. No one could retreat. For the people of the Great Emperor Palace, Wind Frost City, New Moon Sacred Clan, and the others outside the city, the scene in front of them was like a reenactment of the scene on the Wind Cloud platform. The protagonists were the martial ancestor and the War God Palace. The Monster Region's army and the ancestral butterfly clan were also involved. But the difference was that the scale of the battle between the two was like heaven and earth. The Holy War Cloud platform was just a tiny microcosm of the current scene. The man who ended Mang Yuantu's undefeated legend and took over the Wind Cloud list was now standing in front of the highest authority in the War God Palace. The crazy killing was like a storm and the roars of the beasts were like thunder. This time it was Chu Hen who looked at Duansong, who was sitting on the throne below. Make your move. Your War God Palace can't find anyone who can block my sword. Domineering, arrogant, and the most disdainful provocation. Duansong laughed. Ha ha ha, what a hateful guy. But do you think you're worthy? Xing. Formless emperor blade interweaved with cold light. Chu Hen's blade shone with peerless elegance as the blade pointed at Duansong again. Chu Hen's face also showed a cold smile, and the hatred and killing intent in the depths of his pupils overflowed without concealment. Because of your War God Palace's arrogance and shamelessness, I lost a very important person. His voice paused, and Chu Hen's eyes revealed a touch of hostility. His tone was high and full of ridicule, exuding deep hatred. Duansong, right? Wipe your neck clean today. I'm going to kill you, you dog. P.S. Here's the fourth update. Everyone's rewards in the past 2 days have been really great. It makes me feel like I've returned to the peak of the book Martial God King. I won't say anything more. I'll continue to add chapters tomorrow. Chapter 1489. Duansong, right? Today, I'm going to kill you, you bastard. A cold and ruthless aura emanated from Chu Hen's body. The formless emperor blade in his hand blossomed with dazzling divine light. In an instant, two invisible and majestic forces collided, like a falling heavenly river and a sky-shaking tsunami. Bastard. These 3 words directly caused Duansong's face to darken. No one in the world had ever dared to provoke him like this. I swear, no one can protect you today. Duansong's eyes erupted with intense ruthlessness. Then he raised his right palm and slapped the armrest of the stone thrown beneath him. Bang! An incomparably violent explosion resounded. An incomparably terrifying force directly transmitted from the stone thrown to the ground. Along with the deep cracks that instantly covered the entire meditation platform, countless large and small rocks were lifted into the air. Even so, the stone thrown beneath Duansong was not the slightest bit damaged. It's about to begin. The spectators of the major forces hiding in the dark outside the city, were all shocked. Rumble! The heaven-shattering rocks of all sizes seemed to have lost their gravity as they surged up into the sky in an overwhelming manner. Then, Duansong's 5 fingers condensed in the air. Countless rocks swept towards Chu-Hen as if they were hit by a typhoon. In the process of moving, all the rubble rapidly gathered and instantly assembled into a huge pointed cylindrical stone pillar. The fierce attack whistled as the sharp tip of the stone pillar directly attacked Chu-Hen. The corner of Chu-Hen's eyes twitched. He raised the formless emperor blade in his hand, swaying the world-shocking sharpness of the sword with a beam of lightning arcs. Whoosh! A crescent moon-shaped sword light slashed across the sky and slashed the stone pillar head-on. Bang! A heavy sound exploded in the sky. The rapid airflow spread out to both sides. The peerlessly sharp sword shadow was like a divine light that slashed a meteorite in the sky. The sharp stone pillar was immediately split into 2. Humph! Tyrant domain! Buzz! An overbearing momentum that was like a thunderclap shook the heavens, and a vast and vigorous wave of chi swept out in all directions. A brilliance that was like a red tide whistled out. Wherever the red domain energy passed by, space would distort, and there were even traces of spatial cracks that could be vaguely seen. What an overbearing power! Outside the battlefield, the expressions of the spectators from the major forces changed. If an ordinary person were to step into such a powerful domain energy, their internal organs and bones would be crushed by the invisible and brutal force. I wonder if Chu-Hen's territory can withstand Duansong's overlord domain. Humph! Don't even think about it. Duansong's domain is half a step into the heaven stage, Great Saint King realm. I'm afraid his domain will be crushed in an instant. Feeling the powerful pressure coming from the red domain, Chu-Hen's brows faintly revealed a bit of graveness. Without any hesitation, the great path domain also fully extended outwards. In an instant, under many solemn gazes, a layer of red halo and a layer of purple light intersected diagonally in the sky, one above the other below. Boom! Rumble! The moment the 2 different color domain lights collided, it was like a volcanic magma and a raging tsunami fused together. A series of violent forces rumbled in all directions. The 2 domain energy did not give way to each other. For example, water and fire intertwined, constantly rubbing against each other and creating a chaotic rain of sparks. However, the scene that everyone had imagined did not appear. Initially, they thought that Chu-Hen's domain energy would be shattered by Duansong's overlord domain. However, it seemed that he was not at a disadvantage at all. He blocked it. How is this possible? The people from the major forces outside the city widened their eyes. Their faces were filled with disbelief. At the Emperor Grand Palace's side, Wei Yan frowned and said in shock, "The strength of this guy's territory energy is actually so high." Tang Bufan, Hu Bingyu, and the others were also surprised. It was unbelievable. Not long ago, they were still at the same level of competing for the Wind Cloud list. Now, Duansong already had the ability to challenge the strongest person in the God of War Palace. The 2 particularly overbearing domain energy squeezed the space inside until it was deformed. Very good. You're qualified for me to make a move, looking at the young figure standing proudly in the void. Duansong's eyes revealed infinite, killing intent. Buzz. The air current vibrated, and Duansong shockingly disappeared from where he stood. He was like a phantom. Chu-Hen's pupils trembled slightly. In the next moment, a fierce and rapid hurricane came head-on, and a cold figure that exuded a monstrous deterrence immediately appeared in front of him. Too slow! Accompanied by Duansong's disdainful sneer, he raised his hand and punched. The powerful killing intent caused the space to cave in, and a vigorous red aura pattern lingered on his fist. Chu-Hen, who was slightly caught off guard, immediately placed the formless emperor blade in front of him. Bang! The heavy fist force that could pierce through the galaxy smashed heavily on the blade of the formless Emperor blade. The huge force caused the blade to bend in an arc, and then the surging, terrifying power poured into Chu Hen's body. A solid halo appeared between heaven and earth. Chu Hen suddenly felt his body shake, and his whole body was sent flying by this violent force. Terrifying. Everyone who witnessed this scene trembled. "Brother Chu Hen, be careful!" Yi Yao exclaimed in panic. Before Chu Hen, who was retreating, could stabilize his body, an afterimage flashed in the void, and Duan Song's incomparably domineering figure once again appeared above his head. "Is that all you've got? How dare you behave atrociously in my god of war palace?" As soon as he finished speaking, Duan Song lifted his leg and kicked towards Chu Hen's head. The vigorous aura pattern dragged out an arc-shaped light wing behind his leg. "Get down!" The power of this blow could definitely split a mountain in half. Chu Hen's face darkened slightly, and he raised his left arm to block above his head. Boom! A mighty halo of air rippled in the void, and a heavy blow that could split mountains and rivers smashed solidly in front of Chu Hen. In the next moment, Chu Hen was like a meteorite falling from the sky at an extremely fast speed. Bang! With a loud sound, he smashed into the square below. The ground exploded rapidly, and countless deep fault cracks spread in all directions. Layers of aftershocks overturned the ground and caused a huge pit to appear on the platform of the square. What a terrifying power! The people of the Great Emperor Palace, New Moon Holy Clan, Wind Frost City, and others were all trembling in fear. Duan Song was still Duan Song after all. The gap between the mortal Great Saint King Realm and the Earth Great Saint King Realm was directly reflected. Moreover, Duan Song was a terrifying existence that was half a step into the Heaven Great Saint King Realm. You really can't withstand a single blow. With a frivolous sneer, Duan Song set off a majestic aura and swooped down. He did not intend to give Chu Hen even the slightest chance to breathe. Under the huge pressure, Duan Song's body was surrounded by a domineering blood-red steam, and he went straight for Chu Hen, who was deep in the ground. "You can only take 3 of my moves." Killing intent surged in his playful eyes. More and more astonishing power surged from Duan Song's body. "Looks like it's going to end like this." The Great Emperor Palace's 8-armed Emperor Wei Yin shook his head lightly. However, just as he finished his words, just as Duan Song pressed down on the ground with an irresistible and terrifying aura crack, suddenly a piercingly cold lightning pillar shot out from the ground. That is, everyone was shocked. Chi-Chi, the incomparably huge lightning pillar, was like a flood dragon breaking out of the underground cage, intertwining with each other and rushing around Duan Song. The latter's eyes darkened. Humph, insignificant skill. As he spoke, his arms swung outwards, and a circle of light and shadow arcs that were like sharp blades swept out. A series of heavy explosions rang out, and a rain of sparks and fire exploded. The lightning pillar was immediately intercepted and chopped off, but at the same time, a fierce figure with purple lightning swaying fiercely rushed out from the pile of rubble below. Like a beam of aurora, a cold and indifferent face was rapidly reflected in Duan Song's pupils. Crack, countless purple vine-like lightning arcs intertwined from Chu Hen's body and quickly wrapped around Duan Song's figure. Just as the latter was about to shatter the invading external force, Chu Hen, who had already arrived in front of him, stretched out his palm, and a peerlessly sharp lightning claw directly locked onto Duan Song. "It's my turn!" The corners of Chu Hen's mouth curled up. The lightning claw suddenly exerted force, and like a fierce and domineering dragon's arm, it pulled Duan Song down. The distance between the two rapidly shortened. "Humph! Shameless boasting." Duan Song sneered. Rays of red light shot out from his body and penetrated the lightning claw, shattering the lightning arcs around him. But just as the distance between the two was less than half a meter, Chu Hen suddenly somersaulted in the air and flipped from Duan Song's left side to the sky behind him at an extremely tricky angle. It seems that your reaction speed is not that fast. What? The moment his voice fell, a heavy bang sounded. Chu Hen, who had leaped into the air, directly smashed his heavy leg into the center of Duan Song's spine. The deafening explosion was like a thunderclap. A beautiful flower of lightning blossomed in midair. Under countless shocked gazes, Duan Song was fiercely smashed into the ground below. Chapter 1490. Qian Qian, Divine King Wu Ji's latest chapter, as soon as possible. Boom! Like a ball of starlight that exploded close to the ground. A violent and fierce wave spread out from within. Thousands of lightning bolts spread in all directions. Under countless astonished gazes, the already cracked and sunken ground below was once again overturned by the violent shock wave. Bang! Layers of gravel were shaken into powder, and the range of the pit spread wantonly. Everyone's heart trembled. Just a moment ago, Chu Hen was still being suppressed, but in the blink of an eye, he had forcefully recovered. His aura is still so strong. Outside the city, several people from the great Emperor Palace frowned, their eyes filled with disbelief. Well, it's not messed up at all. Feeling Chu Hen's extraordinary aura, everyone could not help but narrow their eyes. In other words, Duan Song's two critical strikes just now did not cause too much damage to Chu Hen. Is this guy made of iron? If it were us, I'm afraid we would be smashed to pieces by Duan Song in an instant. Wei Yan looked at Chu Hen as if he was looking at a monster. Even though the other party was indeed a monster, the earth shook uneasily, and the rubble that filled the sky was like dust floating between heaven and earth. Not waiting for the chaotic waves of air to calm down, the eyes of Chu Hen, who was standing proudly in the air, flickered with fierce purple lightning. Then he stretched his palm down and clenched his 5 fingers in the air. Clang! Along with the destructive power of intersecting thunder, dozens of peerlessly sharp lightning pillars pierced the ground. The incomparably wild sharpness was like a huge wooden stake that could pierce through everything. And, in the midst of the chaotic interweaving lightning pillars, Duan Song was directly pulled out of the ground. A cold sneer appeared on the latter's face. Under the lightning, there was not the slightest hint of panic. He stared coldly at Chu Hen and said, "Not bad. You even seized this opportunity." The moment his words fell, Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He flipped his 5 fingers that controlled the power of thunder. In an instant, all the destructive lightning pillars around Duan Song gathered together. Chi! Dozens of incomparably magnificent, huge lightning pillars immediately interweaved and formed a sinister and terrifying lightning dragon under everyone's shocked gazes. Roar! The purple lightning dragon opened its mouth wide and once again charged towards Duan Song with an astonishing force that could tear apart the sky. Boom! Wind and thunder rolled, and heaven and earth trembled. The thunder dragon charged straight in, knocking Duan Song down along the way. Bang, bang, bang! The stones of the square below collapsed, and a huge ravine rapidly expanded to both sides. An earth-shattering wave of qi swept across the entire square, and dust and smoke rose in all directions. The purple lightning dragon collided with Duan Song's body, and wherever it went, the palace buildings in front of it collapsed and collapsed. Bang! A huge ravine extending hundreds of feet appeared in the center of the main city square. An incomparably violent thunder dragon finally embedded Duan Song in the middle of the main palace. A huge crater was blasted into the left side of the luxurious main hall. The terrifying aura that spread out was daunting. Terrifying. Everyone's heart couldn't help but tremble. However, just as everyone was shocked by Chu Hen's extremely powerful methods, a figure with strands of white gas all over his body stood out from the pile of rubble that had collapsed. The pupils of the spectators outside the battle faintly shrank. Strands of electric arcs swayed on Duan Song's body, and his gorgeous and expensive clothes were also damaged in a few places. But other than that, there were no scars at all. That's all? Duan Song grinned, his eyes revealing a hint of viciousness. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes also narrowed. How is it? If that's all you've got, then I'm really, really disappointed. Disappointed. The moment the last 3 words fell, Duan Song suddenly burst out with a terrifying torrent of hurricane. His figure moved, traversing a distance of 100 feet. Chu Hen's pupils darkened. In the next second, Duan Song had already arrived in front of him. One of his hands turned into a palm blade and slashed towards Chu Hen's neck. The speed was as fast as a flickering light and a passing shadow. However, Chu Hen seemed to have already seen through the opponent's attack trajectory. His figure leaned to the side, avoiding the opponent's attack, and at the same time, the non-phase Emperor blade in his palm stabbed towards the opponent's chest. Duan Song raised his hand and shook off the divine sword that was flickering with electric arcs, then waved his left arm. Swish! Vigorous true essence quickly gathered in his palm, and immediately condensed into a sharp, thorny hand blade. Duan Song held the thorny hand and slashed towards Chu Hen's head with the power to tear the air apart. However, on Chu Hen's left arm, there were already countless violent electric arcs swimming. Chi! The rapidly converging electric arcs immediately turned into a ball of purple brilliance in his palm. Clang! The sharp true essence hand blade directly collided with the violent purple brilliance, and the vibrating explosion pierced through the heavenly river. The violent aftershock exploded in the air, and along with the distorted space, the 2 people quickly retreated. However, after only pausing for a moment, the 2 afterimages once again swept through the air and fiercely collided head-on. The fierce battle between Chu Hen and Duan Song could be said to be earth-shattering. Under the layers of distorted space, a series of violent and chaotic air waves wantonly spread out. The 2 people's moves were fierce, and their moves were swift and fierce. Every move was full of killing intent. Oh my God! The people of the major forces hiding in the dark outside the city were completely immersed in great amazement. This was a battle between a mortal stage, Great Saint King, and an earth stage, Great Saint King. Originally, they thought that, with the gap in the realm, Chu Hen would soon be defeated. However, what was unbelievable was that Chu Hen did not fall into a disadvantageous position against Duan Song. Genius! Evildoer! It was no longer enough to be used against Chu Hen. Duan Song was obviously a terrifying monster. The sky was in chaos and the earth was dark. As time passed, the huge war god palace was completely reduced to a chaotic battlefield. All kinds of shouting and killing sounds were intertwined, like a symphony. Huge beasts rushed into the chaotic army, roaring angrily and tearing the earth. Smoke rose in all directions, spreading in all directions. Luxurious and imposing city buildings collapsed one after another and became dilapidated ruins. Dongfeng, Hengji, Meizhong, Shuyuan, and other Great Saint King realm powerhouses directly fought with their domains, and waves of violent power shook the heaven and earth. The direction of the battle between the 2 sides continued to be unstable. Although the martial Zhong side had the advantage in numbers, and there was also the demonic beast army charging forward and the ancestral butterfly clan helping to treat the injured. However, the most important point was that the War God Palace had an absolute advantage in the number of Great Saint King powerhouses. The War God Palace had a total of 10 Great Saint King powerhouses. Excluding Guxian, who was killed by Chu Hen before, and the Night Warrior who was defeated just now, there were still 8. On the martial Zhong side, there were only Dongfeng, Hengji, Shu Yuan, Meizhong, the second elder of the ancestral butterfly clan, and Chu Hen. In other words, there were only 3 Great Saint King powerhouses left, and no one could fight against them. Therefore, no one could control them. Relying on their powerful domain energy, the 3 Great Saint King realm powerhouses slaughtered their way through the crowd. Even the ferocious, giant, monstrous beasts couldn't withstand a single blow from them. In terms of overall combat strength, although the martial Zhong side was stronger, once the battle dragged on, the three great Saint King powerhouses would inevitably become the biggest factor in determining the outcome of the battle. Even so, the crowd was more concerned about the battle between Chu Hen and Duansong. In the continuous head-on collision, Chu Hen still did not show any signs of defeat. Soon, the spectators outside the battlefield discovered problem. It seemed that no matter how fierce and powerful Duansong's attack was, Chu Hen could easily resolve it. No matter how Duansong's move changed, Chu Hen seemed to know it and could predict it in advance. Outside the city, in a relatively remote place, Liningha of the Five Elements clan stared at the fierce and chaotic battle with a complicated expression. What a blood-boiling scene! Liningha seemed to come alone. Perhaps he did not stand with the other clansmen. He shook his head slightly and muttered to himself, "Is this the power of those eyes?" Chapter 1491. Boom! The all-out war continued to reach its climax. An entire war god palace had already fallen into chaos. The roars of demonic beasts, the earth-shaking battle cries, and a series of fierce battles between domains could be described as earth-shaking and earth-shattering. The martial sect leader Dongfang Hengji, the Han Yun sect leader Shu Yuan, the Spirit Phoenix Valley leader, and the second elder Zhu Dai. These four great Saint King realm experts each had their own strengths. Facing the great Saint King realm elders of the War God Palace, they also displayed their powerful abilities. However, the most surprising one was the battle between Chu Hen and Duansong. One was a disciple of the martial sect. The other was the ruler of the War God Palace. Not long ago, the former was still a nobody, but in just a few months he had caused a commotion in the sacred war and flipped the entire battle god palace upside down. He broke the pattern that had been maintained in the Midland for thousands of years. He had shaken the war god palace's position as the overlord of a region. Clang! A rain of light splashed, and the storm was like a tide. Along with a deafening thunderclap, a figure surrounded by red chi patterns and a figure surrounded by purple lightning arcs were both blown back by the fierce hurricane. The two landed on the east and west sides of the main palace, respectively. The powerful true Yuan energy in their bodies stacked up like huge waves of fire, causing the surrounding space to become restless. "You have to defeat me quickly. Otherwise, the people you brought here will all die here." Duansong had a mocking sneer on his face, and he had a playful expression on his face. "Humph," Chu Hen snorted. "You think too much. Who knows which side will be destroyed first?" "I don't care which side will be destroyed first, but I can be sure that the one who will die first is you. Buzz!" As soon as he finished speaking, Duansong rose like a dragon, and a strong and terrifying murderous aura swept across the sky. He put his palms together, and a condensed crimson beam of light shot out from his arms and pierced through the heavenly river. The world instantly lost its color, and the sky above the huge inner city was immediately filled with a piercingly cold and strong murderous aura. What a strong murderous aura! The expressions of the people from the major forces outside the city changed. "Palace, Lord Duansong is getting serious." An endless destructive aura pressed down on Chu Hen, accompanied by the constantly strengthening, terrifying power. The red beam of light that pierced through the sky suddenly condensed into a giant blade that could split the sky. "Tyrant saber heaven's rage." Duansong shouted loudly. His arms seemed to be holding the might of lightning as he swung them down. In an instant, the peerlessly domineering scarlet blade light split the clouds in the sky and slashed towards Chu Hen with destructive power. The fierce and fierce hurricane crushed in all directions. In the face of Duansong's powerful killing intent, Chu Hen's eyes already emitted a deep and dark light. Hua! With Chu Hen as the center, rays of dazzling light blossomed in the void. "Woo!" There seemed to be an ancient god chanting in a low voice between heaven and earth. In an instant, the phantoms of two huge stone statues, flashing with tens of thousands of mysterious ancient runes, suddenly appeared under the sky. "What's that?" Everyone who witnessed this scene was stunned. Palm of creation. Chu Hen coldly barked. Rumble. Thousands of thunderous roars resounded. Under many shocked gazes, the two gigantic, godlike stone phantoms stretched out their huge hands from the left and right, slapping towards the frightening blade light that was slashing towards them in a combined attack. Hurricanes rapidly gathered on the arms of the stone statues, compressing into a vortex that rapidly rotated above the main hall. Bang! In the next second, the sky shook violently. The two huge palms that blotted out the sky, one on the left and the other on the right, pincered the blade light that was emitting endless destructive power. The moment the two huge palms caught the giant blade light, the surrounding space immediately collapsed. Boom! Rumble! A mighty shock wave immediately broke through the sky like the explosion of the heavens. The palm energy that could destroy mountains and rivers collided with the blade energy that could split the heavens and split the earth. The two extremely destructive and terrifying forces directly set off aftershocks that filled the sky and earth. A ring of vigorous light rippled out in the air between the two of them. Together with the shattered sky severing blade light, the two phantoms also exploded inch by inch. Bang! As the space rapidly caved in, the main hall of the Palace of War in the center of the square below also collapsed with a loud bang. The imposing palace pillars fell to the ground one after another, and the magnificent brick and tile walls also collapsed. The aftershocks that swept out in all directions were like a hurricane that erupted from within. The luxurious and imposing palace disintegrated in an instant, turning into ruins in the blink of an eye. He actually caught it? How many martial arts of the fortune great emperor has he mastered? Looking at the destructive power produced by the collision of the two forces, countless people couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. It must be known that all the buildings in the Palace of War were reinforced with restrictions. It was to ensure that the buildings in the city would not be damaged in the event of some unexpected events. It was the same for the other sects and forces. However, the reinforced restrictions of the Palace of War were definitely not comparable to those of ordinary sects and could withstand a considerable impact. Just now, the thunder dragon that Chu Hen transformed from purple lightning had only smashed a hole in the side of the palace. But now, the entire palace had directly disintegrated. One could imagine how terrifying the power that erupted from the two just now was. Dust filled the sky, and gravel flew everywhere. The instant destruction of the most luxurious building in the Palace of War was enough to announce the complete collapse of Chu Hen and Duansong. The central main hall had exploded, and the entire main city square had become especially flat and vast. Screech! At this moment, a low and deep bird cry came from the west of the ruins of the main hall. Everyone's heart jumped. Looking from afar, they saw that on the west side of the square there were 4 ancient towers that were more than 100 feet tall. At the center of the 4 towers was a holy vermilion bird with a pair of dazzling and colorful wings. It lay there in a feeble manner, and 4 huge chains were embedded deep into its back, which were connected to the 4 towers. Wisps of light patterns swayed up and down the iron chains, and complicated runes exuded a strange aura. Seeing the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's aura being completely suppressed, the expressions of Long Xuanxuang, Yi Yao, Qiu Xingyi, and the others who were fighting in the crowd changed. Chu Hen's expression also darkened, and the formless emperor blade in his hand couldn't help but become colder. "Do you want to save this evil creature?" Duan Tsang laughed mockingly. Chu Hen shouted coldly, "Let go of her! Ha ha ha! Naive!" Duan Tsang suddenly clenched his hand, and his 5 fingers extended downwards. Along with a strong spatial rhythm, the 4 ancient towers below immediately emitted a strange rune fluctuation. Buzz, buzz, like a dry and cracked river overflowing with dark magma. Mysterious and dark ancient runes immediately spread all over the tower. Screech! The sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow seemed abnormally restless. It struggled to get up and flapped its wings like an anxious beast. Along with the constantly trembling space, countless strange patterns swaying from the towers intertwined, connecting from head to tail. They quickly gathered on the platform beneath the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow to form a complicated rune formation. Whoosh! Then endless colorful light beams shot into the sky, and the 4 towers erupted with dazzling light like gods. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the 4 towers simultaneously shot a stream of energy toward the center. Buzz, buzz! The intense energy turbulence caused everyone's heart to tremble. The 4 energy beams instantly converged above the square to form a large energy sphere with a diameter of more than 100 meters. Meanwhile, the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow kept flapping its wings, and colorful flames rose all over its body. It looked like it was being burned by hellfire, and it was extremely painful. This evil creature's demonic energy is very strong. Using her demonic soul as a sacrifice is simply perfect. Duan Tsang smiled playfully. Then, I'll let you experience the power of the 9 kills formation. Ha ha ha! Along with Duan Tsang's unbridled laughter, the rune formation that trapped the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow began to revolve rapidly. In an instant, the large energy body that had gathered in the sky trembled violently, and countless rays of light that resembled dragons and snakes blossomed and erupted from within. Following that, the rays of light that had shot out transformed into extremely sharp dragon snake blades that attacked the people from the martial sect. Hiss, hiss, hiss! Killing intent filled the sky, and blood danced in the air. Anyone who was hit by the dragon snake blades had their bones and blood separated, and they were instantly killed. Chapter 1492. 9 Killing Array Rumble! The storm gathered, and the sky lost its color. The large energy bodies that gathered above the 4 ancient towers were like the bloodthirsty monsters that occupied the sky above the god of war palace. Countless dragon snake-like light rays swam between heaven and earth, like a huge net that enveloped the inner city of the god of war palace. Along with a series of panic screams, the sharp dragon snake-like light rays pierced through the sky and pierced through the bodies of the martial ancestor sect people. Ah! Blood splattered, and the endless murderous aura of destruction covered the sky. Roar! A huge tortoise-shell beast that was hundreds of feet tall roared angrily. It directly soared into the sky and exploded with a violent demonic aura in an attempt to tear the huge net of light apart. However, in the next moment, nearly 100 dragon snake-like light rays descended from all directions, sweeping up an irresistible, super-penetrating force and hitting the body of the tortoise-shell beast. It only managed to resist the first dozen of light rays. Then the dragon snake-like light rays pierced through the heavy armor of the other party and penetrated its huge body. Woo! It wailed and blood rained down. Bang! The tortoise-shell beast fell heavily on the ground. Its body was badly mutilated and covered with countless wounds. The extremely destructive light rays traced all the way down. It was like a divine punishment from the 9 heavens. Boom! With a loud explosion, the giant beast was directly smashed into pieces. Hiss! Shock! Fear! It filled the faces of countless people inside and outside the God of War palace. Is this the rumored 9 killing array? 9 kills, 9 deaths. Martial zone, these people are finished. The God of War palace is really ruthless. They don't intend to give them any chance to live. The 9 heavens transformation. The wind and cloud surged. The dragon snake-like light rays that connected heaven and earth were like a heavenly net that sealed the sky. The destructive force that came down was like a divine punishment of annihilation that gathered in the sky. The main city was instantly in chaos. Ha ha! The War God Palace's master, Duansong, roared with laughter. In his eyes, everyone was like lambs that were about to be slaughtered, and they were despairing and anxious. He looked at Chu Hen mockingly. It said that once you enter the 9 kills formation, you'll have a slim chance of survival. However, it's different today. With this beast's demon soul as the sacrificial formation, my 9 kills grand formation will continue to operate endlessly. I'll call all of you 9 deaths without survival. Ha ha ha, Duansong smiled proudly. This was exactly what he had hoped to see. If he wanted to reclaim his position as the overlord of the God of War Palace, he would definitely soak the blood of these 100,000 people. Chu Hen's eyes flashed coldly as he looked at the dazzling dragon snake light and the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow, which was suffering unbearably. Without saying a word, he dragged a string of lightning in the void and rushed toward the 4 ancient towers at lightning speed. If he wanted to control the current situation, he had to break this formation as soon as possible. Otherwise, none of the people behind him and the sacred winged, heavenly flame sparrow would be able to survive. Duansong immediately saw through Chu Hen's intention. "Ha, you want to break the formation? I'll give you enough time." Duansong had no intention of stopping Chu Hen at all. He allowed him to approach the sacred winged, heavenly flame sparrow. He had absolute confidence that no one in the Midland could break this 9 kills grand formation, since it was already a dead end. What Duansong wanted to do at this moment was not to kill, but to destroy. Hiss! Swish! At the same time as he rapidly approached the 4 ancient towers, the powerful energy body, floating in the sky that was as gorgeous as a star, unceasingly erupted with fierce light pillars that shot towards Chu Hen. Chu Hen displayed an extremely fast reaction speed. He was like a dragonfly touching the water, flashing up and down, changing his position left and right. One after another, the dragon snake light beams brushed past Duansong's cheeks and shoulders. It was a scene that made one's heart tighten. What a fast speed! I can't see his figure at all. The spectators outside the Palace of War Gods exclaimed in admiration. Chu Hen's reaction speed was so fast that everyone could only catch a wisp of afterimage in the air. No matter how dense the 9 kills grand formation's attacks were, Chu Hen was able to effectively avoid them. But no one can break the 9 kills grand formation. It's useless no matter how fast he is. Swish, swish, swish. In the blink of an eye, Chu Hen changed nearly 100 positions in a row. Like a carp that had crossed the dragon's gate, he directly arrived at the square where the sacred winged, heavenly flame sparrow was imprisoned. The two looked at each other through the formation that was surging with killing intent. Chu Hen said in a deep voice, "I'll save you now." With that, Chu Hen leaped up and charged toward the enormous and violent energy body that floated high in the sky like a stream of light. "As long as I shatter you, I can break the formation." Traces of determination surged in Chu Hen's eyes. Ha 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 ha. Before he finished speaking, Duansong's mocking laughter rang out. "I'm sorry, but you guessed wrong. Whoosh!" As he finished speaking, Duansong's 5 fingers tightened in the air. In an instant, the dazzling and gorgeous energy body erupted with tens of thousands of dazzling rays of light. In the next instant, the innumerable dragon snake light pillars turned around and pointed towards Chu Hen. Rumble, the power of the countless light pillars was comparable to the divine punishment of the heavens. It illuminated the sky, stained the ground with frost, and swept up a berserk divine might that landed solidly on Chu Hen's body. Bang! The heavy sound was like a clap of thunder. No matter how fast Chu Hen was, it was impossible for him to dodge the attack that had no gaps at all. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, Chu Hen was ferociously smashed into the ground by the berserk impact. Boom! Rubble exploded and dust rose in all directions. Chu Hen was heavily sent flying, dragging traces on the ground for dozens of meters before he was able to stop. Chu Hen? Big Brother Chu Hen? Everyone from the martial sect was shocked. They saw that Chu Hen's body was emitting white steam and his body was covered with wounds. Inside the 9 Kills formation, the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow, who was trapped by 4 giant black chains, looked at the young figure on the ground uneasily. "Don't worry about me," the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow said. Chu Hen turned to look at it, but the corners of his mouth raised slightly. "Don't worry, I'm not dead yet." As soon as he finished speaking, thousands of terrifying, destructive heavenly punishments descended, and the dazzling light instantly engulfed Chu Hen. Boom! Clang! One after another, the dragon snake light pillars were like tens of thousands of thunderbolts that fell from the blue dome of heaven. Rocks collapsed, the earth collapsed, and the power that could destroy everything came one after another. Beam after beam of aurora pierced through the ground. In the blink of an eye, the area where Chu Hen was located had become the gathering point of a storm of death. And Chu Hen's figure was also engulfed. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Dongfang Hengji, Shu Yuan, Mei Zhang, and the rest were all shocked. Hee, this is the first time I've seen someone barge into the 9 Kills formation alone. You're asking for it, Xian Luan, the elder of the god of War Palace, who was opposite Dongfang Hengji, sneered. The martial sect, Hanyun sect, and Spirit Phoenix Valley, who were already panicking, were at a loss when they saw the scene. As for the Horse City, the Flying Rain sect, and the other forces, their faces were even paler. Duan Tsang, the palace master of the god of War Palace, sneered proudly. I forgot to tell you, you'll die if you guess wrongly. Chapter 1493. Once inside 9 Kills, 9 Lives. This was the definition of the 9 Kills formation of the War God Palace by the people from the major sects and forces of the Midland. The power that could destroy everything was like divine punishment, shrouding the sky above the inner city, completely blocking the retreat of the martial zone side. Meanwhile, near the core of the 9 Kills formation on the west side of the central square, the continuous destructive power was like concentrated thunder, striking the ground and penetrating everything. The faces of countless people inside and outside the War God Palace were filled with shock, especially the people from the major sects and forces who were watching the battle outside the battlefield. They were all shocked. It is indeed the 9 Kills formation. Its power is so terrifying. This time, it will be hard for him to survive. The terrifying power that was gathered together was wildly and indiscriminately bombarded. Countless dazzling dragon and serpent lights had already engulfed Chu Hen within. Furthermore, the violent bombardment was still unceasingly erupting. The ground was unceasingly expanding and exploding. It was blasted all the way to the depths of the ground. Duan Tsang did not intend to give Chu Hen any chance to turn the situation around. It was obvious that he wanted to smash Chu Hen into the ground and firmly strangle him with the power of the 9 Kills formation. Bastard! Mu Feng's eyes were bloodshot. Long Xuan Yiyao, Qiu Xingyi, Huang Fuqing, and the others were also shocked and angry. Everyone wanted to cross the overwhelming storm and lightning area, but they could not even cross the area released by Duan Tsang. Meanwhile, Dongfang Hengji, Shu Yuan, and the other great Saint King realm experts were also firmly entangled by their respective opponents and could not spare any effort to rescue Chu Hen. Like a gathering storm, dragons and snakes swam, tearing the earth apart. At this moment, the martial zone side had a bad feeling. Ha! Duan Tsang laughed wildly, like a monarch who controlled the life and death of everyone. Your expressions at this moment are exactly what I am looking forward to. A group of mobs. How can you enter my grand palace? Everyone's mind trembled. However, just as Duan Tsang finished speaking, an incomparably violent and heavy explosion suddenly stacked up in the sky above the War God Palace. In an instant, everyone's hearts trembled, and Duan Tsang's laughter came to an abrupt halt. The large energy sphere that had gathered above the 4 ancient towers had actually exploded without any warning. What? Everyone was astonished. Like the exploding stars in the sky, The powerful aftermath swept in all directions like a tsunami. Countless rays of light interweaved in the sky, and countless dazzling rays of light shuttled between heaven and earth. What was going on? Everyone inside and outside the war god palace was confused. Shortly after, the dragon snake brilliant net that enveloped the sky above the war god palace completely collapsed. That the formation has been broken? The Grand Emperor Palace's Wei Yan's eyes widened in disbelief. How is this possible? It's impossible to break the 9-killing formation, someone exclaimed. Furthermore, he didn't even touch any of the formation cores. Puzzled, as well as a strong sense of disbelief. Wind Frost Cities, Situhanya, 5 Elements Clans Liningha, the Great Emperor Palace's Tang Bufan, and the other people from the major forces all clenched their fists, their eyes filled with great seriousness. The rapidly disintegrating energy sphere immediately quieted down, and the complicated killing glyph formation under the sacred winged, heavenly flame, bird's body, also retracted, and the formation patterns that were as hot as underground magma also rapidly withdrew. This situation, apart from the formation stopping, there was no other possibility at all. Suddenly, everyone's eyes trembled. Countless people's eyes fell on the side of one of the towers, only to see a strange monster lying on the top of the tower. What is that? Looking from afar, the monster was only a dozen meters tall. It had barb-like sharp claws, but its body was like a withered tree trunk, and its pair of eyes glowed with a golden light. It was very strange. Its whole body flickered with brilliant talismans. At this moment, it was opening its abyss-like black mouth, greedily devouring the power of the talismans on the tower. Talisman beast? Duansang's eyes were cold as he spat out the word. Upon hearing these 2 words, everyone present was astonished. It's actually the legendary talisman beast that feeds on Reiki energy and the power of talismans? Tang Bufan muttered in shock. Wind Frost Cities, Situhanya's eyes were also filled with seriousness. So the rumor about the Ice Emperor that has been passed down in the family is true. Looks like the so-called 9-killing formation is just SOSO. A mocking sneer entered everyone's ears. Under everyone's shocked gazes, a young figure slowly stood up from the ruins that had long been blasted through. Not dead yet, the people from the War God Palace were shocked. On the other hand, everyone from the martial sect could not help but be delighted. Among the rubble, Chu Hen's body was covered with dozens of wounds. His handsome face was also damaged in a few places, and there was a trickle of blood at the corner of his mouth. However, his aura was still strong and powerful. His pair of deep eyes that were flickering with a faint light were filled with disdain. You did it on purpose. Duansang shouted in a deep voice. Chu Hen wiped the blood at the corner of his mouth. If I didn't do it on purpose, how would I have the chance to release the talisman beast to break the formation? Whoosh! Everyone was stunned. From the beginning until the end, Chu Hen did not think the key to breaking the formation was the huge body of energy in the sky. The reason why he made such a big move was purely to attract Duansang's attention so that he could release the talisman beast into the 9-killing formation. Talisman beast. This ancient creature that had lived for tens of thousands of years was definitely a natural creator of the power of runes. Although it was not familiar with the structure of the 9-kills formation, it could rely on its strong perception of the power of runes to find the core of the 9-kills formation. As long as it cut in, it would be able to stop the 9-killing formation that had a slim chance of survival. Who would have thought that Chu Hen still had this trick up his sleeve? Chu Hen had never revealed the existence of the talisman beast, even during the honor list competition. 9-killing formation? The corner of Chu Hen's mouth curled up into a disdainful smile. Then he raised a palm and waved it in the direction of a sacred winged, heavenly flame bird. Screw your 9-killing formation. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, a monstrous purple storm exploded around the sacred winged heavenly flame bird. The storm was as fast as lightning, and the airwaves were earth-shattering. Violent shock waves swept out in all directions. After a series of violent bangs, the 4 ancient towers collapsed and collapsed. The platform on the square where the 9 killing formation was set up was forcibly destroyed and disintegrated. 9 killing formation. Next time, set it up more firmly. Chu Hen looked provocatively at Duan Song, whose face was gradually turning gloomy. Bang, bang, bang. The huge square on the west side of the platform was completely overturned. Deep and dark cracks rapidly extended out. The moment the 4 towers collapsed, the 4 black chains embedded on the back of the sacred winged heavenly flame bird also broke. Screech, a loud bird cry, soared into the sky. At this moment, the sacred winged heavenly flame bird's scarlet eyes burned with multicolored flames. It leaped into the sky, and a monstrous, blazing flame actually burned the sky. The startling demonic energy that was suppressed was like a ferocious tsunami that rebounded. A pillar of fire soared into the sky, shattering the ground. The sky changed color rapidly. An incomparably powerful aura directly broke through its original critical point and reached a higher level. Buzz, as if being reborn from the fire, the sacred winged heavenly flame bird spread its 1,000-meter-long, multicolored wings and soared into the sky. Then, a red light pattern spread out like a tidal wave. Great Saint King Realm? When did this beast break through? The expression of the War God Palace's Elder Shui, who had brought it back, darkened. Elder Shur, who had followed along, also clenched his fists. This beast actually broke through to the Great Saint King Realm under our eyes. This elder cannot let it go. Kill it. After saying that, the 2 of them rushed towards the sacred winged heavenly flame bird. However, before the 2 of them could make a move, another old man appeared in front of them in a flash. Leave this beast to me. The 2 of you go and deal with them. The old man's face was ferocious, and his aura was especially cold. Them, Elder Shur and Elder Shui, were stunned at first. The 2 of them looked at each other and immediately understood what the other meant. Hee, very good. Humph, we know what to do. Then, the 2 of them directly looked at Dongfang Hengji, Shu Yuan, Mei Zhang, and the others. Once the 9 killing array was broken, the situation that was originally leaning towards one side changed greatly. Kill! The deafening battle cries shook the sky. The Beast Army, the ancestral Butterfly Clan, the Martial Sect, the Spirit Phoenix Valley, and the Hanyin Sect all launched a fierce counterattack. Chu Hen's domineering and piercingly cold words ignited everyone's blood in response to Duan Song's provocative words. When he raised his hand to overturn the 9 killing array, it ignited the high fighting spirit of everyone behind him. It was like a pillar of the soul. As long as Chu Hen did not fall, no one would be afraid. In the sky, on the ground, Duan Song and Chu Hen faced each other in the sky. Both of them felt as if there was a terrifying, ferocious beast occupying their hearts. War God Palace, Martial Sect. This scene was like a battle between a dragon and a python. Chapter 1494. Roar. The beasts roared as their battle cries shook the heavens. The intense battle that broke out caused the entire War God Palace to be reduced to ruins. The smoke of beacons extended, and the trenches extended. Fresh blood stained the ground, and horrifying corpses were strewn everywhere. No one had expected the Martial Sect to fight against the War God Palace to such an extent. Even more so, they did not think that the 9 killing formation, which was regarded as a 9 deaths, 1 life, would be broken by Chu Hen. The situation on both sides was constantly changing. Chu Hen's forceful breaking of the formation and the sacred winged, heavenly flame sparrow's breakthrough immediately boosted the morale of the Martial Sect side and set off a strong counterattack. You evil creature, you've been hiding so well these few days. An elder of the Battle God Palace raised a majestic black domain and charged towards the sacred winged, heavenly flame sparrow that was bathed in flames and dancing in the sky. The sacred winged, heavenly flame sparrow's aura had been weak for the past few days after being sealed in the 9-killing formation. Seeing this, the war god Pallas naturally let down their guard. No one had expected the other party to step into the great Saint King stage under everyone's eyes. It was truly unexpected. Screech! The sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's eyes shone with a domineering aura. Facing the powerful domain power that swept over, it moved in the air and flapped its wings. Who? Scorching air waves spread across the sky as a huge pillar of fire shot down towards the other party. Bang! The terrifying pillar of fire directly invaded the other party's domain. Like a huge dragon swooping down, it pierced through the domain and blasted towards the other party. Humph! The elder from the war god Pallas's eyes revealed a cold glint as he dodged to the side and continuously dodged the raging flames. At the same time, his speed increased drastically as he set off a majestic aura that pressed towards the sacred winged, heavenly flame sparrow. The two domains immediately collided with each other, and the violent collision was like a collision between two mountains. The resulting shock waves caused the sky to tremble and sway. Thousands of soldiers fought, and the sky darkened. The battle of domains caused the weather to change. They had thought that the war god Pallas had the absolute power to suppress the other party, but the martial sect's stubborn resistance caused the chaotic battle line to continuously lengthen. Boom! Bang! The luxurious and imposing skyscrapers quietly disintegrated, and the resplendent palaces collapsed one after another. The inside and outside of the war god palace were in ruins. This was not what Duansong wanted to see. You really deserve to die. Duansong's eyes were filled with cold, killing intent as he stared condescendingly at the young figure in the pile of rubble below. It's been a long time since I've had the intention to kill someone like this. Humph! Chu Hen smirked. Same to you. Buzz! The void between the two began to vibrate rhythmically. The two of them, one above and one below, stared at each other from a distance, like two fierce tigers facing off. Huff! In the next moment, a circle of gorgeous lightning arcs appeared in the air, and Chu Hen's shocking aura burst forth. At the same time, Duansong's aura also rose like a storm. Little bastard, see if I don't make you die without a burial place. As soon as he finished speaking, Duansong's tremendous aura soared into the sky. At the same time that he charged towards Chu Hen, waves of destructive and violent energy enveloped Chu Hen from all directions. Duansong's eyes were as sharp as a blade. As he stretched out his palm, the red energy waves that were surging around him gathered around him. Like a torrential storm, endless killing intent filled the sky and earth, and thousands of scarlet spear shadows burst out in the void. Limitless spear break. Rumble! The killing intent was like numbness. Thousands of terrifying, interweaving sword shadows tore through the sky and enveloped Chu Hen's head. The dense spear shadows were like an earth-shattering rain of light. Each spear shadow was as solid as if it had been tempered in magma, and it was surrounded by strands of rapidly flowing light patterns. Feeling the powerful aura from Duansong's killer move, the expressions of everyone inside and outside the war god palace changed. No one doubted it. Duansong's move was enough to instantly kill any mortal rank or even earth rank great Saint King powerhouse. Disappear! Duansong shouted coldly. The wind and rain were strong, and the stars were gathered above. Looking at the countless destructive spear shadows that pierced through the sky, Chu Hen's pupils faintly shrank to the size of a needle. Rumble, accompanied by thousands of thunderous roars. Chu Hen's seemingly tiny figure was directly swallowed by the storm of spear shadows. However, in the next moment, a violent and destructive aura immediately spread out, and the space that was sealed by the endless spear shadows suddenly caved in. Then a loud and heavy bang shook the sky, and a powerful blue circle of light suddenly surged and exploded from within. Immeasurable creation, the already dark world once again fell into an unprecedented shock. At this moment, the dazzling light stunned everyone's visual nerves. Like an exploding star, the space in all directions was quickly torn apart. Wherever the blue circle of light went, the thousands of spear shadows that were like a torrential storm were completely crushed. Oh my God! Seeing the immeasurable creation again, the geniuses on the list of excellence that were hiding in the dark outside the war god palace felt their hearts stop beating. Although Chu Hen had already performed it once in the Chaos Devil domain, seeing it again still made a huge impact on his mind. The terrifying shock wave that could destroy everything swept over the central square of the inner city with a momentum that could flatten the 9 regions. Countless spear shadows mixed with the aftermath of the fierce air waves overturned the heavenly river. The ground of the square below burst open rapidly. Cracks that quickly extended out formed an abyss-like fault. Dust filled the sky, and the remaining power raged. After that, under numerous shocked gazes, the 2 figures retreated from the center of the chaotic energy storm, one to the east and the other to the west. Both of them steadily landed back on the ground. The cold wind was biting cold, and the frost and dust filled the sky. The battle between the various domains shook the 9 heavens. At the same time, the Valley Master of Spirit Phoenix Valley, Mei Zhang, and the War God Palace's elder, Inferior Tooth, also broke out a particularly fierce confrontation. Boom! The turbulent cyclone crushed the surrounding buildings, and Inferior Tooth, who was as strong as an orc, was actually shaken back 100 meters. After all, compared to Dongfang Hengji, Xu Yuan was more experienced. Mei Zhang was the first to gain the upper hand. However, without waiting for Mei Zhang to take advantage of the situation to launch another attack, suddenly a water-blue light curtain attacked. Water domain. Mei Zhang was shocked and immediately threw out a palm to the side. Bang! For palms collided, and a strong air wave suddenly set off behind the 2. The true inner force outside Mei Zhang's body was like a flame, swaying in the wind, especially uneasy. You. Looking at the attacker in front of him, Mei Zhang's face darkened. But before Mei Zhang could finish speaking, a piercingly cold gust of wind came from behind him. At the same time, a layer of brown light curtain formed a second domain that pressed on Mei Zhang's body. Go to hell. Not good. Mei Zhang turned pale with fright. Bang! A dull explosion reverberated in the air, and a pair of thin and fierce palms hit Mei Zhang's back. Mei Zhang's body shook violently, and a mouthful of blood suddenly spurted out. Then, Elder Shui sneered and hit Mei Zhang's chest several times. The vigorous true inner force lingering on Mei Zhang's body was completely shattered. Bang! The domain that Mei Zhang released immediately collapsed, and at the same time his whole body was smashed like a sandbag, falling heavily on the ground. Mei Zhang's body was dyed red with the blood that constantly flowed out. Valley Master. All the disciples of Spirit Phoenix Valley were shocked, and all of them were shocked and angry. Mei Zhang climbed up with difficulty and stared at Inferior Tooth, Elder Shui, and Elder Shur in front of him with a face full of anger. You guys are so shameless. 3 Saint King realms against 1 person at the same time. No one had expected this at all. Humph. Elder Shui sneered disdainfully. Do you really think that we are willing to wait for you to waste time here? Naive. The ending has long been decided. You guys are just struggling on your deathbed. Outside the God of War Palace, the people from the major forces secretly shook their heads. The thing that martial sect was most worried about had happened. The 3 great Saint King realms that no one could control had become the key to deciding the situation. Previously, they did not make a move, which gave martial sect a little suspense. However, as the 9 killing array was broken, and the sacred-winged heavenly flame Sparrow joined the battlefield, it was obvious that the God of War Palace did not intend to delay any longer, because there was no need to. Don't you dare harm our valley master. Kill. The group of people who were close to them did not say a word and quickly rushed over there. Humph. Elder Shu'ei smiled contemptuously, raised his hand, and raised a layer of blue light curtain towards the crowd. Meddlesome. Bang, bang, bang. Everyone was sent flying, and one by one they fell to the ground, as if they were being oppressed by a heavy weight and vomited blood. Stop! Mei Zhang roared angrily. Death is at hand. Don't care about others. Inferior Tooth's mouth curled into a cruel smile. And then he leaped up, setting off a murderous aura, and rushed in front of Mei Zhang. Damn it! Dongfang Hengji, Xu Yuan, and the others were all anxious. However, when they wanted to go forward to rescue him, they were held back by their opponents. Don't worry, it will be your turn soon. The elder of the god of War Palace, Xianluan, sneered. Dongfang Hengji's eyes were almost spitting fire, and he threw a few palms at his opponent. The power of the domain that shrouded down blocked all of Mei Zhang's escape routes, and the latter had already felt the arrival of the god of death. Am I going to lose? Mei Zhang could not help but feel a little desperate. Inferior Tooth's smile became colder. I will send you to the next world. Woo! Suddenly, a loud and clear fox howl tore through the sky. The sky was filled with flower rain, like snow falling on the world. Under the white feather, a terrifying sword power suddenly swept through the inner city of the god of War Palace. Zhang! The impassioned sound of the sword was deafening. 5 green fox shadows suddenly appeared around Luo Ye. This is... Everyone's heart skipped a beat. In the next moment, the 5 fox shadows dragged a bunch of white sword light and quickly swept towards Inferior Tooth in the middle. Flowers fill the sky and intoxicate 3,000 guests, 1 sword frost, and 19 provinces. The sound of the air being cut was particularly clear. The 5 fox shadows intertwined and shuttled around Inferior Tooth's body, stunning and gorgeous like the bright stars in the dark night. Hiss! A series of bright blood splattered in the sky, and together with the power of Inferior Tooth's domain that was cut apart, the opponent's powerful beast-like body was instantly torn apart in the sky, and his whole body was directly disintegrated from the middle. Chapter 1495. Hiss! Gorgeous blood flowers danced in the wind, splattering in the air due to the intertwining airflow. The loud and clear sword cry emitted a magical power that shook everyone's soul. The sword ray, dragged by the 5 green fox silhouettes, stunned the world. Under countless shocked gazes, Luo Ye's beast-like sturdy body was directly split into pieces along with the domain power that had been split apart. Blood splattered in the sky as frost dyed the world. A great Saint King powerhouse was killed with a single sword strike. The hearts of everyone present were filled with shock. Everyone inside and outside the God of War Palace was shocked. Who was it this time? Woo! The fox cried, and the wind howled as frost filled the sky. In an instant, a huge green fox silhouette suddenly appeared in the sky above the inner city. Under the snowflakes that floated in the sky, Luo Ye's body was lying in the air. A demonic figure holding a long sword stood in the air. Whoosh! An invisible airwave swept in all directions, causing everyone's eyes to tremble. The person's hair was dyed snow, and the corners of his eyes were long and narrow. He exuded an innate noble aura. 9-tailed fox, whether it was the people from the God of War Palace or the martial sect, everyone was shocked. Wow, it's that handsome fox. 6-winged ancestral butterfly, Qiao Shaowan called out in surprise. Not far away, Mu Feng heaved a sigh of relief. We finally made it in time. It's one of the strongest demon clans, the 9-tailed fox. Outside the city, the people from the Great Emperor Palace, the 5 Elements clan, the New Moon Saint clan, Wind Frost City, and many other forces were also surprised. As everyone knew, ever since the 9-tailed clan suffered a great calamity, they rarely went out. They even rarely cared about the matters of the demon territories. It was unbelievable that they would interfere in the battle between humans. Chu Hen actually had so many helpers? Somewhere in the chaotic battlefield, the martial sect disciple Qi Qianing looked at the particularly dazzling figure in surprise. Her eyes were filled with light. Valley Master? How are you? A few Spirit Phoenix Valley disciples hurriedly surrounded Mei Zhang and helped him up. Mei Zhang lifted him up, but his face was still solemn as he looked at the scene in front of him. I've been blaming myself for letting you escape last time. Jun Jianga raised his hand and pointed his sword at Elder Shui and Elder Shi. Both of their faces were extremely gloomy. Damn fox! How dare you meddle in the affairs of the god of War Palace? Elder Shi said fiercely. Jun Jianga smiled coldly. How can you stop me from meddling in something that I want to meddle in? Die! Both of you come at me together. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be qualified to draw my sword. Bastard, don't be too complacent. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died. Elder Shi said sternly. Don't talk nonsense with him. Let's kill him together. Elder Shui was also furious. After saying that, the two of them released their domain power without reservation. Light curtains of different colors converged and turned into a double domain that shrouded Jun Jianga. However, Jun Jianga didn't care about it at all. His body was also emitting an extraordinary and powerful energy rhythm. Domain of swords. Boom! Bang! The three domain forces collided violently in the air. Jun Jianga was fighting against two, but his domain was still stable without any distortion. Then, the two from the god of War Palace fought with all their strength. No one expected this. At the critical moment, the Fox of Green Hill, Jun Jianga, had appeared halfway and not only saved the Spirit Phoenix Valley's Valley Master Mei Zhang, he had also beheaded Elder Arya in a thunderous manner. As he fought against two people alone, the outcome of this fierce battle that changed the entire Midland finally began to be in suspense. The main deciding factor of both sides was the Great Saint King realm powerhouses. They were almost equal. The destruction of the 9 killing formation, the breakthrough of the sacred wing, heavenly flame bird, Jun Jianga's appearance. All the advantages the War God Palace had at the right time and in the right place vanished into thin air. This time, the God of War Palace had no advantage at all. Even in terms of morale, the martial sect side was steadily ahead of the other side. You seem to be a little complacent. The vicious woman holding the 5 poison cauldron coldly stared at Xu Yuan, the leader of the Han Yun sect. The latter raised the corner of his mouth and smiled frivolously. I'm not complacent. I just feel that the God of War Palace is not as powerful as I thought. I'm sorry to tell you, but it's too early for you to be happy. The woman's eyes emitted a poisonous cold light. As soon as she finished speaking, the giant snake covered in green scales directly circled behind Xu Yuan from the thick blood mist. A cold fishy smell filled the air as the giant snake opened its mouth and closed towards Xu Yuan. Humph! Xu Yuan snorted softly. He glanced out of the corner of his eye, then suddenly turned around and sent out a dazzling ray of light. Cloud halberd! Zung! The sound of a heavy weapon reverberated in the sky. Xu Yuan shouted loudly, and a sharp halberd surrounded by swaying golden light swept out from the dazzling light. With a peerless divine might, the cloud halberd exploded with a dazzling divine radiance and directly hit the giant snake's mouth. Bang! With a loud sound, a piercing light pierced through the sky. The halberd forcibly penetrated the head of the giant snake. Blood rained down, and the ferocious giant snake quickly collapsed. Then it exploded into a cloud of blue smoke. I'm going to kill you. The cold woman shook the 5 poison cauldron in her hand once again. Then, for rays of blue light emitted from the cauldron, the 4 clouds of blue smoke quickly wrapped around Xu Yuan. As they moved, a series of strange and sharp whistling sounds came from within the blue smoke. The scorpion, spider, toad, and centipede, the The 4 ferocious and malevolent large poisonous creatures were like hungry ghosts that crawled out of hell. Shu Yuan did not dare to be careless. He grabbed the air with his 5 fingers. Swoosh! The cloud halberd immediately returned to his hand. He waved the halberd like a god of war, facing the attacks of the 4 poisonous creatures. Bang! Rumble! The violent power overturned the ground of the palace of War God, destroying the luxurious and imposing palace buildings. The central square of the inner city was covered with countless huge cracks that seemed to extend into the abyss. East and west, the 2 people who decided the final direction of this earth-shattering battle were like 2 fierce tigers facing each other. It seems that you have used up all your trump cards. Strands of cyclones flowed around Duan Song's body, and the surrounding space began to vibrate rhythmically. A smile that was close to madness appeared on his face. However, I have not even begun to use my strength. What? The domineering figure caused the hearts of everyone present to tremble. As soon as he finished speaking, Duan Song's eyes erupted with a blazing brilliance. Rumble. In the next moment, the rocks on the ground beneath him cracked inch by inch. Like a volcano erupting in an instant, a spiral of blazing red light pillars surrounded Duan Song's body and shot into the sky. That is, the people outside the palace of War God were shocked. This blood-red, explosive energy is... Bang! The terrifying aura crushed the rocks in all directions, and a monstrous blood-red steam almost pierced the sky above the palace of War God. In an instant, the sky above the vault of heaven seemed to collapse, and a storm gathered. Duan Song's body seemed to be soaked in a layer of high-temperature magma, and a steady stream of blood-red, explosive energy split in all directions. Sacred body of primitive wilderness, Duan Song's voice exploded in the ears of everyone present like a thunderclap. Clang! It was like a thunderbolt from the clear sky. The moment they heard these words, Dongfang Hengji, Shu Yuan, Mei Zhang, and the others were all shocked. Outside the palace of War God, the people from the Great Emperor Palace, the 5 Elements clan, Wind Frost City, and other major forces also widened their eyes in shock. Hong, sacred body of primitive wilderness. It turned out to be one of the 10 strongest sacred bodies, the sacred body of primitive wilderness bloodline limit. That the Palace of War is a force of the sacred clan of primitive wilderness? Oh my god! What are they doing? Duan Song is actually... At this moment, the entire Palace of War God was turned upside down. Sacred body of primitive wilderness. One of the 10 strongest sacred bodies. It was also the sacred body with the most destructive power among the 10 strongest sacred bodies. In anger, wind and thunder shook. In one move, mountains and rivers split. In the whole world, those who possessed the sacred body of primitive wilderness could overturn rivers and seas with a raise of their hands. Shock. Absolute shock. Next, the entire Midland would be turned upside down. Duan Song turned out to be from the sacred clan of primitive wilderness. It was hidden too deeply. It was really hidden too deeply. For thousands of years, no one had seen through the background of the palace of War God. Tremble. Duan Song, whose momentum was monstrous, burst out with a great divine and demon power that could destroy heaven and earth. He lifted his leg, and with a loud bang, an incomparably fierce shock wave directly split the heavy earth in front of him, setting off a strong explosive force and blasting towards Chu Hen in front of him. Chu Hen's pupils shrank, and a black light immediately ignited around his body. He punched out, and a vigorous fist pillar met the red shock wave. Bang! Rocks cracked, and waves of air rose to the sky. Messy rubble flew down wantonly, and Chu Hen was forced to retreat. His feet were dragged on the ground for 100 meters before he was able to stop. How is this power? Duan Song's entire body was surrounded by rapid blood-colored steam. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and he said coldly, "It's only SOSO. Only SOSO. If it was a moment ago, everyone would have thought that Chu Hen was domineering. Now, in their opinion, Chu Hen was pretending to be calm. The moment Duan Tsang displayed the sacred body of primitive wilderness, the outcome of this battle was already decided. Ha 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 ha, I hope you can still stand and talk to me later. Primordial giant. Rumble. Along with Duan Tsang's ear-piercing and earth-shattering momentum, the even more violent blood-colored steam directly crushed the entire platform of the plaza. Numerous red pillars of light intertwined in the sky, like wind pillars entangling the clouds, stirring up the heavens and the earth. Under countless gazes filled with dense shock, Duansang's body rapidly grew larger. Hua! Surging waves spread out, and Duansang suddenly turned into a giant that was 100 meters tall. A dark red berserk power covered his body, like a divine armor formed from magma. He stared at the tiny figure below with an indifferent attitude, and boundless killing intent rose and surged. You can completely disappear now. Buzz! The moment his words fell, Duansang, who had transformed into a primordial giant, punched towards Chu Hen below. The ferocious and violent fist force pierced through the sky and descended. Boom! In an instant, the ground beneath Chu Hen rapidly caved in, and countless cracks exploded. The black shadow quickly enveloped the sky above his head, and the giant fist that was like an apocalyptic fiend god descended like a meteor. Heaven and earth shook. The world trembled. In everyone's eyes, Chu Hen was like a small boat in the middle of a storm, facing the falling meteor that could destroy the world. Everything around him was crushed into powder. Everyone's impact was concentrated on one person. He's dead. Wei Yan of the Great Emperor Palace said determinately. Tang Bufan, Hu Bingyu, Liningha, Sitahanya, and the other geniuses on the list all showed a deep fear. Izhou, Wang Li, Qiu Xingyi, Wu Yan, and the others were all filled with fear. Long Xuanchuang, Yi Yao, Huang Fuqing, Mu Feng, and Qiao Shaowan all showed a trace of sadness and panic. The martial sect, the Han Yun School, the Spirit Phoenix Valley, the Horse City, the Flying Rain School, and many other forces had all fallen into a deep despair. They had risked their lives already. But who would have thought that the War God Palace was backed by the Chaos Clan, one of the 10 most powerful holy clans in the Midland? Man proposes, but God disposes. In the end, human lives could not be disobeyed. Raging wind and rain gathered as the tremendous chaos fist shattered the space. Looking at the terrifying power that could destroy everything, Chu Hen's dark and deep pupils quietly released a strange wave of power. Boom! The ground cracked, and the surface of the inner city caved in. The remaining buildings in the surroundings were directly swept to the ground. Under countless pairs of eyes that were on the verge of popping out, a chaotic shockwave overturned the entire sky above the War God Palace. However, at this moment, everyone's pupils shrank to the extreme. The scene in the space seemed to have been frozen. The scene that everyone had predicted did not appear. The wind and clouds rose and the sky changed. The destructive fist of the chaos giant, transformed from Duansang, was firmly stopped in the air. Above Chu Hen's head, a giant purple hand directly caught Duansang's terrifying fist power. He blocked it. What? How is that possible? My God, that's the chaos sacred body. Between the sky and the earth, there seemed to be a melodious battle song. Everyone's heart seemed to have stopped beating. At the same time, in the sky behind Chu Hen, a pair of incomparably evil purple eyes quietly emerged. Like the eyes of an ancient demon god, they shocked everyone, looking down at the War God Palace. This is demon eye. Clang! Another bolt from the blue exploded in the depths of everyone's soul. There's more!